Peace, everybody. We are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Do me a favor, hit that like button. Again, please hit that like button as you come into the chat room. Once again, do me a favor. Take that finger, thumb, whatever you want to use. Just do me a favor and hit the like button. Also, share and subscribe to the content. If you are new to the platform, do me a favor, hit that subscription button. It does not hurt, does not cost you a dime or a penny. But if you could just do me that solid, as we say, do me that solid, I will greatly appreciate you and I love you. Again, hit that like button, share, and subscribe, and I will greatly appreciate it. Also, tours. Have some tours coming up. We are leaving for Nigeria next month, August 8th through the 17th. August 8th through the 17th for the Oshun Festival. Again, we are going to Nigeria next month, August 8th through the 17th. I hear people asking about Brandon. Brandon's channel was, I guess, flagged where he couldn't stream last week. So I think he's off of timeout this week. But yeah, I think once again, Brandon's channel he got a strike. I think he got a strike, a copyright strike or something like that. And his channel was down last week, but I think he's able to stream again this week. I think I need to hit Brandon up. In fact, Brandon, if you're watching, let us know. Let us know what's going on with your page. But guys, make sure you go over and support Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. Again, support Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. Yeah, Brandon can join the chat, of course. Of course he could join the chat. Again, of course, Brandon can join the chat. But I think that was the issue. I know Brandon reached out to me last week, and that's what he told me. But he's uploading videos. Again, I believe he can upload videos, so he's currently uploading videos. But as far as live streaming, I don't think he could live stream currently. But when I asked him, I think yesterday or Sunday, if he could start live streaming again, I think he said he can. So he should be okay to live stream. But he is uploading video, so make sure you go check him out. Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. Again, Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. That's Brandon's page for everyone who is watching this. Also, guys, people are always asking, Dynast, where do you get the gear from? Where do you get the gear from? The clothes, the shirts. When I'm out and about here in Atlanta or wherever I'm at, people are always asking, Dynast, where do you get the clothes from? Visit Ilemir, IleAmir.com and grab all your gear. Again, go to ILEAM. No, I've gotten strikes before. I've gotten several strikes. I've gotten two before. Yeah, one of them was so petty that I don't want to get into it, but I've gotten strikes before. But go to Ilemir, IleAmir.com. Again, visit IleAmir.com. Forehead Warrior, we Ethiopians are not black. Listen, in fact, Forehead Warrior, I think that picture that you're using as your avatar is the video that we're going to watch today. That's interesting. I think that's the actual picture, Forehead Warrior, or the avatar of the video that we're going to watch today, which is very, very interesting. But guys, hit that like button, share, subscribe, hit me up about the tours. Nigeria, November 20th through December. I'm sorry, Nigeria, August 8th through the 17th. Again, August 8th through the 17th. Again, August 8th through the 17th. We will be going to Nigeria for the Oshun Festival. So you are more than welcome to join us. Again, Oshun Festival, August 8th through the 17th, Nigeria. Sierra Leone, November 20th through December 3rd. November 20th through December 3rd. We are rolling to Sierra Leone. Citizenship is available to those who qualify. Again, citizenship is available to those who qualify. So we would love, I would love for you guys to join. It really means a lot for you guys to, in whichever way you guys support, whether it's watching the videos, buying the gear. I greatly appreciate it. I really do. So thank you so much. Hold on one second. Let me pull this video up real quick.
I'm getting confused.
So the video we're about to watch, I found this. It was this past weekend, and it was a talk show. You had Nigerian, you had Ghanaian, white South African, and you had this Ethiopian guy, young Ethiopian. He was 15 years old, so I don't want to call him a boy, but a young Ethiopian male. And they were just talking about their differences. But what shocked me, it kind of did, it kind of didn't, was when the lady asked, she was talking to the Ethiopian guy, and he said straight out, I don't like white people. I don't like Negroes because our faces are burnt. Something to that extent. So I just want to watch this video. We could watch it together, and then we could open up the lines and have a conversation about it. But it was very interesting. And this is back, I think, in 1957. This video was shot back in 1957. So this is going to be interesting.
How can Americans be for and against Africans at the same time?
Well, if I say anything, I'm going to confuse you still more. As an Ethiopian, I'm prejudiced against both white people and Negroes.
Discussion are 4 high school students from 4 different countries in Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. Here is Amelia Day from the Gold Coast. Amelia is 18 years old. Here is Susan Rennie from the Union of South Africa. Susan is 17. Susan, those school uniforms, are they always that short?
No, this is actually a dispensation. I'm a senior, but the other girls have to have them 3 inches above the knee.
Very interesting study in native costumes. Thank you. Now let me introduce the boys, will you? Here, our baby for tonight, 15-year-old Mesfin Benega from Ethiopia, and 16-year-old Boniface Opakaja from Nigeria. Now, let's start out by asking you what some of your own prejudices are. How about you, Amelia? Have you got any prejudices, say, against the Nigerians?
Yeah, I have my own personal prejudice against the Nigerians. Coming from the Gold Coast, where there are many Nigerians, I think that I sometimes look down on the Nigerians as somewhat inferior to us. Because you see, the Nigerians who come to the Gold Coast are mostly beggars. So that's my opinion about the Nigerians.
It's funny. I don't see how you have a case against for this your proposition, or I say for this your stand. Actually, personally, I look towards the Gold Coast not as inferiors, but perhaps as people that are individualistic, are not working towards the communal effort or towards the welfare of the nation. They, of course, have made great strides because they are a very small country, and yet you have all these differences in their country.
Mesfin, how about your prejudices? You admitted to several at the beginning.
Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferiors. We have a
Man, he said we consider the African Negroes inferior. This is back in 1957. He said we consider the African Negroes as inferior. This Ethiopian child. Well, young man, Ethiopian young man. He said we consider the African Negro inferior.
course, our own reasons for saying so.
Well, what are they, Meskin?
Well, first thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that.
Okay, so they consider themselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. Again, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel, but not Negroes. So, guys, when I hear my Hebrew Israelite family and all my Black American family that swear to God, oh, those pictures of Jesus at the Ethiopian Coptic church, you know, they showed a black Jesus. Nah, they didn't consider Jesus to be black. He was just, his skin was burnt. Hence the term Ethiopian. Ethiopian is a Greek word which means burnt skin. I mean, that's what they named the country afterwards.
That our faces are burned, that we look like Negroes. And also, we've been ruling part of thing. We consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our faces are burned, that we look like Negroes.
So they consider themselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. And the reason why their skin is burnt, and the only reason why they, I guess, look like Negroes, because their skin is burnt. Fun fact: this kid now on the Ethiopian government won a United Africa. Oh, yeah, those pictures are not Negroes; they are Arab Ethiopians. But again, my black family, you know, my black um, Hebrew family, Israelite family. Well, in Ethiopia, they got a picture of black Jesus. No, they ain't, he's not black. He's just a dark skinned Arab, or you know, whose skin was burnt by the sun.
Also, we've been ruling part of Africa for hundreds of years uh, during the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
Well, what about your prejudices against white men?
Well, back home, if a woman marries a white man, she's considered mean, and when she dies, the priests never pray for her as they would do for any ordinary man. It's just considered as suicide.
Why do you think?
Far down as Mozambique.
Well, what about your prejudices against white men?
Well, back home, if a woman marries a white man, she's considered mean, and when she dies, the priests never pray for her as they would do for any ordinary man. It's just considered.
So listen to what he said. If an Ethiopian woman marries a white man, pretty much she's considered meaningless, and the priest will not pray for her like they will an ordinary man. Meanwhile, in sub-Saharan Africa or the other parts of Africa, if an African woman marries a white man, she has seen Jesus himself, she has married God. That's what he just said. He just said that. If an Ethiopian woman marries, but there's a lot of Ethiopian women swirling out here in America, especially in like places like California and DC and New York. A lot of Ethiopian women swirling. But he said Ethiopian woman marries a white guy, the priest won't even pray over her. But meanwhile, other parts of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, African woman marries a white guy, she's married Jesus in the flesh. Hold on, continue. But listen, marry and date who you want. You know, marry whoever makes you happy. That's what you do. Again, whoever makes you happy, do that. But we all know a lot of, and this goes for the black men as well, who marry these old white women who are fresh out of hospice. Again, this goes for these black men as well, who marry these old white women who are fresh out of hospice, and then for the African women who marry these old white men who are fresh out of hospice. So the African men who marry these old white who marry these old white old white women who are fresh out of hospice, and these African women who marry these old white men who are fresh out of hospice. They hustling draws for green cards. All right. They are hustling draws for green cards. That's what they're doing. All right, here we go. Fresh out of hospice. I mean, you see some of these African brothers, especially in Nigeria. You see some of these Nigerian brothers with these old white women. It's like, what you gonna do with that? Like, what are you gonna do with that? Like I said, marry who you want. Listen, marry who makes you happy. But seriously, what are you gonna do with this old white woman who was in her 70s? Again, what are you gonna do with this old white woman who's in her 70s? What are you gonna do? Like, literally, I'm not exaggerating. Hustling draws for green cards.
Considered as suicide.
Why do you think they look down on the white people so much?
Well, for the first reason, religiously they consider them unclean in heart because they eat pork, and that's prohibited in religion.
So they said they consider the white man unclean because he eats pork. All right, let's continue.
Susan, you got any prejudices?
Oh, I think I've got some pretty large prejudices. I think I'm very prejudiced against the foreign press, particularly American press, because I've come up against a lot of discrimination myself while I've been here. As a South African, everywhere I go, particularly in the schools, at the moment I mention that I'm from South Africa, I'm discriminated against in the sense that, well, the picture in South Africa, the situation has been so badly distorted and so exaggerated because racial news is sensational news. And so journalists have so distorted the picture in South Africa that when I come over here, I'm looked down upon. And I've really felt this discrimination. I haven't been treated as just an individual and a human being. And I feel that the press is responsible for this.
Well, I've been wanting to ask you a question.
You know, that's interesting because during this time, when this was shot, I don't even, like black people were going through hell here in America as well. So it's just as interesting how the press will put this image out that, you know, the same people who are being racist towards black people in America want to point the finger at white South Africans. That's interesting.
For a long time, when we all came here, you just took to me. You like me very much, I can see, and I like you. But I know you are a South African, and I am an African. But why is it that out here you are very friendly towards me, but down in South Africa, you don't do the same towards the Negroes that are living there? Can you tell me?
Well, it's the whole setup. I mean, South Africa, we have a pattern of life which is different to any other country in the world. Because you have the white population, and which came to the country in 1652, and they are much more highly developed, coming from Europe with European backgrounds and traditions, and they have developed the country and have developed a highly civilized community, whereas the Negro, the Bantu as we call them in Africa, in South Africa, is primitive on a very primitive level, and the barrier in South Africa isn't so much color as civilization and economically.
Excuse me, on that point, we get into a very, very tense ground recently. You talked about this question of it not being a racial struggle, but a struggle of civilization. Well, personally, you see, I sympathize with your situation because I couldn't live in a country, your economic position, and perhaps your future well-being as a nation might be in danger if you allow the strong-hearted, driving Africans to take over the government. That is, of course, what will happen if they're given the vote. Nonetheless, let us come now to that basic issue of racial segregation. I hear this honorable gentleman is from Ethiopia. I think it's high time Ethiopians come to the side where exactly they are. I usually wonder, are you Negroes? You are not Negroes. You say you are not Negroes. Are you white? You're not white. What are you?
Well, I told you the answer. We're not Negroes. We are one of the lost tribes of Israel. It's just because our faces are burned
Yes,
that we look like
I've
Negroes.
got the point. You are lost. I think that makes a conclusive answer.
Listen, he doubled down on we not Negroes. We're the lost tribe of Israel and our skin is burnt. He tripled down on that.
I'm wondering if Susan and Meston have something very much in common. Neither one of you admit you're Africans, and yet both of you live in Africa and have for generations and generations.
Well, I won't say that we naturally, because we're a different ethnical group, we're not Africans in the sense that the Negroes and other groups have actually originated in Africa. But I consider South Africa my homeland and my fatherland, and I always will. And there is a misconception that exists. Most people think that the white settlers came to South Africa and took the land from people who
so.
Oh no, it is not, and I'll prove it to you. Who came to South Africa and took it away, as the whites came here to America and took it away from the indigenous occupants. In 1652, when the first white settlers arrived at the Cape, the Bantu, as they are now known, the Negroes in South Africa, were still coming down from equatorial Africa, migrating. And it's a fact that they had not yet entered what is now known as South Africa, the borders of South Africa. The only indigenous occupants in Africa, South Africa at that time, were the Bushmen, and they were exterminated by the Bantu coming down.
Excuse me, Susan, on that point, I think you've read your history upside down.
How come?
Yes, you see, the exact thing that happened was that these Dutch men, I think they were Dutch men, they haven't got a place in their homeland.
Oh,
Not
no,
a means of living.
I can just
Let
prove,
me finish.
all right, and then I
Susan,
can prove you how wrong your historical facts are.
Oh, no, you know, your history is South African history. Mine is a bipartisan history. Well, this man came without any means of livelihood in their own country, with the economic background, without any meaning at all. They came to South Africa. And the real facts are that as they came and there was an influx of these Dutch people from their unwanted homes, as there was an influx, the Bantus they were pushing the Bantus up into the country, till came the Zulu War, in which the Zulus were finally defeated in the most bitter and agonizing struggle they had against these Africans. Yes.
I don't know where you get your historical facts from. I really
I
don't.
got my historical fact from, I think, is it Mr. Trevelyan? Is in British history.
Oh,
That's far
Mr.
better
George
than.
Trevelyan knows nothing then, and I'll say that. Because it so happens that these penniless whites, as you call them, didn't come out because they didn't have homes or because of any kind of persecution. They were sent out as officials of the Dutch East India Company to establish a refreshment station for ships passing around passing around the bottom of the Cape. Just as the Dutch settlers were sent out to America by the Dutch West India Company to settle and to make a refreshment station here. Now, I think if you had to turn around to those Dutch settlers who came out and said that they came out because they were penniless, they'd be just as indignant as I am. And as you say that the white settlers came and pushed the Bantu back,
Yes.
It's a fact that the whites went into the interior of Africa and didn't come into contact never even saw a Bantu until 1795, which was practically 100 years, more than 100 years after they had arrived in South Africa.
How did you have the Zulu War? What brought it about?
The Zulus had already, by the time, I think you must have a look at a map. Zululand is very far from the Cape, where these people arrived. And within 100 years, after the arrival of the white settlers, the Zulus had by that time, the Zulus are a part of the Bantu group, had already come down to Natal. And then you got the two groups, the one coming from the north, the one coming from the south, and they met. And that's where you get the Zulu War.
It was not even a clash in the sense you are taking it. It was even the British.
It was a clash.
The British in their benevolence or in fact in their, because they've seen the facts that this thing is not good, they even were exercising a tempering force upon the people.
Boniface, just to make things more complicated for you and Susan, I've heard a third interpretation of this, which might settle it. That was the fact that the Bantu were a migratory people, and that it may be true that at some point when the whites came in, there weren't any Bantus there because they were migrating somewhere else. But look, this is all past history now. I'd like to hear something from Mesfin and Amelia on their interpretation of South African history, but almost rather, let's bring it up to the present, can't we?
Yes, we bring it up.
Well, come back just a minute, Sue, to your violent prejudices against the press because they're misrepresenting what goes on in South Africa. Do you want to clarify that a bit?
Yes, I would.
Will you?
No. Well, I know one outstanding example of misrepresentation. We read in an American, I think it was a magazine, I won't give the name, although I could very easily. This journalist quoted Dr. D.F. Malan, who is an ex-Prime Minister of South Africa, as saying, and I quote, "The Negro does not need a home. He can sleep under a tree." Well, not only is this absolutely fictitious, but he forgot to mention the fact that brick and concrete trees, known to most people as houses, are costing thousands, millions of dollars of the white taxpayers' money annually.
What did you say? I didn't get the point. Said what houses?
Well, you see, this journalist said that Dr.
Yes,
Malan,
I got that point. You say what houses costing the government millions of dollars?
I
what
said
houses?
concrete and brick and cement houses for the Bantu peoples.
But these are the Bantus that are working for you in the factories. How did you get the money? They got the money, they mined the gold, got the gold, and you sold the gold outside. You got the money and you say the money is yours.
Of course
You
it
can't
is.
do that's a contradiction,
Look,
please.
we came along. We bought the machinery. We developed the mines.
From where did you get the machinery from the mines in Johannesburg? Do you own the
No,
mines?
we got
Who
our
worked the
machinery.
mines?
We got our machinery from Great Britain.
Who
From
worked-
the money that was picked, what was got for the diamonds. And
How did you get the diamonds out of the ground?
No native labor there.
How did you get the diamonds out of the ground?
They weren't dug out of the ground. They were alluvial diamonds. No native labor there, my boy.
What do the natives do? You know what, Suzanne, what's one point you must get right down to the crux of the matter is that in this country, the Africans are really the backbone of your economy. And it is one of that cases where you get this question of man's inhumanity to man. And every day you come here to complain about misrepresentation in the American press. In the actual matter of fact, the American press is giving a fairly good view of the whole situation because they have a color problem themselves.
Have you been to South Africa?
I wouldn't even pay a penny to go there.
Well, then, how can you talk? How can you talk?
Because I have the facts. People come in there, get every people, no means of living. How can I go there? I want a house, I want a home, I want position in society.
Well, look, they're getting it. They're getting exactly what they want.
I'd love to hear from Amelia and Mesfin what their picture, if their picture of South Africa is the same as Boniface's is.
It should be the same. Wait.
Well, coming from Africa myself, naturally, I would be a little embittered against the whites in South Africa because from what we hear, they are mistreating the Africans there. But personally, I have no preconceived ideas against the whites because, frankly, I haven't been there, and you can't always trust what you hear from people or what you read from the press. So I have no solid facts.
I'm pretty sure this is the same. She comes from the ilk of Ghanaians, the bloodline of Ghanaians that sold out Kwame Nkrumah. She just sounds like it. She has it written all over her face.
About South African problems.
Actually, I myself am against the South Africans because I mean the white people in the South Africa, because in whose house can one come and take away the property? Because what they are doing now, the white people are mining and taking the property for themselves, and that's what they shouldn't do. Because the native people who are living there, they should have what is the property of theirs. Well, actually, before I came from Ethiopia, I was reading about this in the press, and they were pretty hot about it. They were against the white people. The same thing could happen to them, of course.
On this oppression business, if you say the Bantu in South Africa are oppressed, how do you account for this fact? That every year, regularly, hundreds of thousands of Bantu and Negroes from other territories are joining South Africa, such as Portuguese, East Africa, etc., are invading our country illegally in spite of the law.
We've gone.
Are they coming for oppression? They know what goes on in South Africa, and they come back year and year again. Those who have worked in South Africa and have been sent back, come back. Are they coming back to seek oppression?
This does not answer what I'm driving at. The Africans have the land. They were
no,
there
they
before
do not
you.
have the land, and
They
they were
mine
not
the
there
gold.
before us.
All right, wait a minute, Susan. Let me get my point straight before you go. They mine the lands, they get the diamonds, you sell the diamonds outside. And when you get the diamonds, you say they are not to be given their own fair share of the quota. Have you read Cry of the Beloved Country?
Yes, I have.
How?
It's a one-sided view.
One-sided view, and it was written by an European. How could Europeans be having one-sided view about their own
They're
king and
radicals
king?
in every nation.
Radicals? You are radicals in South Africa, then?
Oh, no, we're not.
Look, Mesfin was just talking about, and all of you, about the importance of news about South Africa in the Gold Coast, in Nigeria, and in Ethiopia. I'm wondering whether news about racial problems in the United States also takes up a good deal of space in your countries. Does it in the Gold Coast?
Yes, very, because after all, the Negroes come from the Gold Coast, and we feel very badly about what the Americans are doing to our Negroes. I know that one of my ancestors probably came here too, and from what I hear in the Gold Coast, the Americans don't give the Negroes a fair chance of activities here. For instance, they don't give the Negroes the same education as they give their white Americans. And also, for instance, a Negro wouldn't be permitted to go to ride on the same bus with a white man. As for me, I don't think that color, which is purely a natural thing, can be such a great bar to human understanding. And I think America is a democratic nation, as it calls itself. But this one thing really doesn't show it off very well as a democratic country.
Amelia, you've been in the New York area for about a month now. Does the picture you had of America that you've just described correspond to what you've seen here in the schools and the communities you've been in?
Well, when I came up here, most of the people in New York told me that segregation is only practiced in the South, but in the North, they have now begun to have integration. Well, I didn't think much about it, but one day after school, I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine, and she's an English girl, and we sat there and waited to be served by a waiter. Well, the waiter just came around, looked at us and passed us and went around serving others who came in after us. Well, I knew at once what he was doing, but my friend didn't know it. So she walked up to the waiter and said, well, we've been waiting here so long, won't you serve us? The waiter just looked at her hard and then looked back at me. And then I told the girl that we better leave the restaurant because I understood it. But the girl was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because that was what I was expecting to find. And
All right, that was interesting. Listen, links in the chat room if you want to call in and add to the conversation. Link is in the chat room if you want to call in and add to the conversation. Again, link is in the chat room. If you want to call in and click on the link and add to the conversation. But yeah, man, that was interesting. That was from 1957. I caught that this weekend. I was like, let's do a show on that. Let's talk about that. And do me a favor, hit the like button, guys. Take your finger and hit the like button. Say cool, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, brother Dynast Amir. Can you hear me?
Hear you just fine.
Yeah. So that video is circulating on the social media, and I've watched it quite a few times. Now, if you listen to these people, I think they were speaking around the 50s, is to tell you the process of miseducation of our people, how it started, and how these youngsters then were trying their best, to grab some information, but you can still see the miseducation there. You listen to the boy from Ethiopia trying to separate himself from what he called Negroes or Bantu, and how he was speaking. The girl from South Africa, how she was trying her best, trying to project herself as the owner of South Africa. Now, this is to tell you how our school curriculum were designed to make us think this way. The boy calling himself that they have burnt faces, but then he's not Bantu. This is how the Europeans who designed our curriculum divided us into Negroes, into Hamites, into all sort of groups. That's how they even took ancient Egypt out of Africa. This is how they separated into sub-Sahara Africa, and then all type of categorization. So this tell you, even today, despite our Afrocentric scholars have tried to bring us back to understand some of these tricks that have been played on us, and then the categorization, we're still having problem with our school curriculum. If you are in Nigeria today, for example, ask people on the street, who are you? They identify themselves as Igbo, Yoruba. They go by the tribe. They forget that we have some ancestral cultural connection as African people. That this categorization of Muslim, Christian, Igbo, Yoruba, became very serious under colonialism to categorize people. That's why today African nations, we have countries, but we have not created citizens with national, who have national identity. We have created countries with tribal identity. If you are in Nigeria today, even the politics of Nigeria, there is no Nigerian. There are tribal people living in Nigeria. Their current election is a proof. You have one man from the east, your Igbo, another man from the west, Yoruba, another man from the north, and they are competing based on their tribal identity, not on their nationality as Nigerian. So you see, we have not yet freed ourselves. We have not created a national identity for Black people. We are only creating tribal identity, and it started from colonial period. They have made it, yeah, we have our tribes before colonialism, but we were building empires, and these empires were eliminating tribal consciousness, and that we have failed to do, and the European system of segregating is what we still have. And it's a pity. When I watch this video, I have tears in my eyes, because this is how they started dividing us.
Gas them up. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, family? Dynast, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, because I'm out of spot where the Wi-Fi is a little funny style. But yeah, you know, these videos are a little old. You know, it kind of reflects, as the brother was saying, the mentality. You know, I've been screaming these things for a while, that the mentality of Africans, especially the educated Africans, you know, is something that we have to contend with. A lot of the educated Africans are, you know, as Fanon would say, black skin, white mask. And that's something that we haven't really contended with. I think the truth of the matter is right now there's a crisis of self-consciousness. The African has not been able to identify themselves and who they are and what their place is in the world. If you look at any of the modifications of modernity, as I say, that's any of the new developments within this Western system, whether it be vegan, whether it be, you know, alternative energy, none of them have come from Africans. And it's not that we don't have the capability, it's that to a certain degree, the systems that we live under, the nation state in of itself, all of these things, if you want to go on a real deep philosophical level, almost everything is handed to us. We're passive recipients of our existence today. We're not active in defining ourselves, whether it be, you know, defense, right? None of us are, none of our scientists are coming up with an African way of defense. No one's looking at how Shaka Zulu defended the Zulu Empire or how Benin defended, you know, its borders. No one's looking at any of that. We're just like, we got to copy the West, copy the West, copy the West. And that video shows we've been on that track since the 50s. You know, when you called out the girl about the whole Nkrumah thing, that was funny. You get what I'm saying? But it's like I always tell you, Dynast, these are the elite Africans that, you know, the African Americans come across. Because I'm sure that Ethiopian guy, that Ghanaian girl, typically, most of them, if you look at their background, their parents were well-to-do. They had house helps in the house, right? They came from money. And so these are the ones that can afford to go to the embassy. These are the ones that you see at the UN meetings, you know, talking loud and saying nothing, as James Brown would say. So I really think, no, man, we really have a crisis. And you're going to see it. You know, you're going to come to Nigeria. You get what I'm saying? You're going to see there's a difference between these city Lagosians and those village Nigerians. And those city Lagosians think they're so smart because they've been to the UK. They've been to the London School of Economics.
I'll even take it further. The Lagosians on the island.
Oh, don't even get started with all those Yahoo boys.
Listen, gas them up. Listen, I'm not trying to stereotype my family, my Lagosians on Victoria Island and on the island in general. But I've ran into a couple from the island outside of Nigeria, and it's just like, what?
Yeah, but these are the ones. They're crazy.
I know a lot of down earth cool ones, plenty of them. But I ran into some. All I have to say is you must be from the island, and they be like, yeah.
You can tell. Yeah, but these are the ones. These are the ones that represent Africans. And so, unfortunately, a lot of times these are the ones who they don't get along with the local people back home. So you think they're going to get along with their, with their family across the river, across the ocean? No, they're not. These are conservative, elite type Africans that you come across. You put it like this: you've never seen a Victoria Island Nigerian that resembles Fela Kuti. If you ever come across one that reminds you of Fela, yo, this brother remind me of Fela, or even forget Fela.
I know one personally that's real cool that you can put in that mold. But I ran into a couple.
Out of how many? One.
But guess what? It's been primarily the women that I've ran into from the island outside of Nigeria. You just be like, what?
Well, these are the women now that are bringing this feminism nonsense. They're bringing all these abortion rights. These are the women. They're confused people. They're bringing all this nonsense that they get from abroad, right? They go to Harvard, London School of Economics, Yale. They learn perfect. And I end with this. You see how that white girl was sounding? She sounds like a fucking, she could be Joe Rogan's mother. They come with these well-to-do, rational arguments. These people have not changed who they are. They've never changed. And unfortunately, the so-called elite class amongst us are literally bootlickers of these people. They have a disdain for their African villages. They have a disdain for their African culture. They have a disdain for Ifa. They have a disdain for voodoo. They don't even see the high science behind it. There's a great book that connects voodoo and quantum physics. They don't even look at those things. That to them is backward, primitive, Jesus, God forbid, heaven forbid, the enemy, blah, 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 while they eat imported chicken and rice and drink 5 Alive. That's who we're dealing with on the continent. And these are the ones that get into leadership, and they're bringing a lot of BS back home, unfortunately. This is what we got to deal with.
All right, let's see here. Djibouti Warrior, go ahead. Unmute yourself. And guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button again. Please hit that like button. Again, Djibouti Warrior. All right, going once. Going twice. Okay, and guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Cash and Zulu, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Peace to everybody in the chat. What's up, Dynas? Can y'all hear me?
What's good, brother?
I'm decent, man. It's funny. That video is a good example on the type of Africans that come over here and the type of people we deal with in general. You could watch the video in silence and kind of piece together what they're talking about. If you look at the white girl's body language when the Nigerian guy, when he starts grilling her, well, he wasn't really grilling her, he was just hitting her with facts, You could see how intense she was. She faced him. Her whole body was facing him. He's just laughing.
Because niggas don't talk to her like that in her country.
Yeah. She like, you nigga, how dare you sit here and correct me with some factual shit, motherfucker. I'm always right. I'm white. And you can see it all in her body language. She was piercing through his soul, and he just laughing. But the Ghanaian girl, that's a prime example of the boule bougie Africans that come over here, with those mindsets, and they look down on the Black Americans that are already over here, and they kind of, you know, stay away from them in that sense. And that Ethiopian guy, I've also interacted with people like that too. I've worked with people like that. Like I've had Ethiopian people tell me they were Caucasian. You know, like that's a classification in Ethiopia or something like that. But we all know they're not the real Ethiopians. We know they're not the indigenous Ethiopians, like the Omo Valley Ethiopians. These are the watered down, you know, Arabs, basically.
Sekou, go ahead, Sekou.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Let's break it down. Let's go to the issue of identification or cultural identity or racial identity. You know, when you the Ethiopian boy, people are saying, oh, like my brother just said, maybe they classify themselves as Caucasian. Well, the European classify them like that. You have to understand that when these people took over the continent, they met people with different phenotypes. So they had an idea.
Sekou, if I can interject, okay. So the
yeah, let me land. Let me land, please.
Well, let me. But this is important, and I promise you, I'll let you land. I just again, I don't understand how we continue to use this white man as an excuse. So if the white man classified the Ethiopian as white or whatever, they could have easily said, no, we're not that, we're this. But go ahead.
You're right. You are right. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting to, because the classification is part of their political process of controlling the people. So what they even went to Rwanda. If all of you here know Rwanda, they categorized one group. The people in Rwanda speak one language, Kinyarwanda. They have one culture, and they look at them based on phenotype and said there was a group of Rwandese called Tutsi who had long nose, have Caucasian, quote unquote, Caucasian phenotype, and they call them Caucasian. Then they refer to other group who had flat nose that looked like me from West Africa. Then they call them Hutu. Based on that definition, those people killed themselves and committed genocide in the 90s. And you say, why didn't they erase that? Well, when you are functionally miseducated for over a century, it doesn't happen overnight that you gave up those identities, because white supremacy is a profit. It is profitable. It's profitable in a way that it gives you a social location where you benefit. If you are classified as Caucasian, that means you may have certain privilege when the colonial masters are giving out jobs. There was incentives attached to it, so that the Tutsi were giving more jobs in the colonial government than the Hutu. So the Tutsi want to become Caucasian because it's incentive driven. So those who think the little boy they saw in the video did not look like West African, you never been to West Africa. Have you been to the Futa Jalo Highlands in Guinea? Go and see the Fulanese will look exactly like that little boy, and they are in West Africa. You will find people even having longer phenotype than that boy, and they live in Nigeria, and they live in West Africa. So the Ethiopian of today has nothing Caucasian on him. He's an African. Like
no,
any other.
I never said that they are Caucasian. I said that they classify themselves as Caucasian.
Yeah, I just told you why they did that.
However, my state
got in the video.
Okay,
no, Costa, he wasn't talking. He's talking to the dude in the video. No, but Costa, he wasn't talking to you. He's talking about the boy in the video. He wasn't talking about you.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you. If you live in Nigeria right now, look at the current president, his first family, Buhari. Look at his phenotype and look at the former president, for example, Obasanjo, from of different race, because their phenotype is not the same. Okay, but they are country. One is from the north and one is from the south. Africa has the diversity. We have different phenotypes. Okay, that is nothing to do with Caucasian blood. We are the old and say just because this person has this European who did that because he was trying to project himself in what he sees in the world. So he's trying to classify people based on his perception of reality. But our scholars have changed that. I will quote scholars like Sheikh Anta Diop, who has redefined and said that the definition given by the colonialists, we should not define ourselves like that. And they have redefined us. But the teachings of these scholars have not been added to our school curriculum. The European elite that you talked about, brother, I think it was Kasha Zulu, those African elite have refused to change the paradigm. They continue to use the colonial curriculum and the colonial system because they benefit. They are the bourgeoisie between us, the ordinary Africans, and the European ruler. So we are not completely free. We right now, I will digress a little bit. The debate, Dinas, you know about Nigerian politics. What's the debate in Nigeria today? A Muslim presidential candidate ticket versus a Christian ticket. They are not debating projects. They are not debating progress. Right. They are not debating scientific progress, African culture, African philosophy. They are debating Quran and Bible. Something that was brought during the colonial time. That's what dominated Nigerian politics. Who is a Christian? Who is a Muslim? And what position should a Muslim hold? What position should a Christian hold? They are not debating who is an African. What is African philosophy? What was our Yoruba paradigm of thinking? What is the Ifa say, or what is our philosophy of development? How did we build empire that lasted for thousands of years? How did we do that with diversity? How did we manage diversity in our empire, the Mali Empire? How did we manage diversity in the Songhai Empire? Nobody talks about these things.
Brother, if you talk to an African right now on the continent about what you just said, what do you think they'll tell you?
He doesn't even know what you're talking about. I am from Liberia. Okay, we know much about anti-African stuff. It's what we are anti-Black America, anti this, but we don't. There's nothing that teach us to even love. Even those who have fought for Pan-Africanism, those who have established Pan-Africanism, established Liberia, you hardly hear any positive information of them. Okay, we start reading about Lord Luke, about colonial masters, how well they've done, how well they brought Christianity, how well they brought peace. People that kill us and rape us, these are the people we talk about in our examination. Go read West Africans examination in Nigeria. You will hear about Lord Lugard. You will start reading about the man who discovered River Niger. In 2022, they said somebody discovered River Niger. Okay, so I'm talking a lot. I'm getting emotional. I think I will stop here.
Hold on. Yeah, go ahead, gas them up.
No, go ahead. I'm here.
Hold on, sorry about that. Go ahead, Alex. Unmute yourself, Alex, if you can hear me. Something's going on with my mic. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, how's it going? So basically, I think Sekou made a lot of great points about people or certain ethnic groups in Africa who identify as not Black to gain certain, benefits and, have a certain let me think. Basically, he was right about the certain ethnic groups in Africa that try to identify as either Black, white, or Arab to try to get certain benefits. And I think that has something to do with the idea of flat blackness, where certain people in America would think that somebody in Africa would see themselves as Black because they have a certain phenotype. Like I said, like the last time I was on here, certain people in America would be considered Black, but in certain African countries they wouldn't be. And there's also differences with ethnic groups in Africa that around the Sahel that consider themselves as Arab, but if people in America saw them, they would say those people were Black. For example, I'm from Cameroon, and in the north of Cameroon, there's a certain ethnic group and they're called the Shua Arab. So they're called the Shua Arab tribes. So they have the name Arab in their ethnic group. But if you look at the people, they look like, you know, what black people would look like, but they consider themselves as Arab people. Maybe because of the influence of Islam and the influence of people from the north.
Alex, you got Africans in northern Nigeria that don't consider themselves African, that consider themselves Arab. So it's just it's identity issue.
Yeah. So the idea of flat blackness might have to be examined. I think personally, for the most part, people should go off of culture and what certain ethnic groups and what cultures we have that we share with each other. So, like, Pan-Africanism is pretty hard to achieve because you can't mix certain cultures and certain ethnic groups in one landmass and try to form them as a certain country if they don't have much in common, you know. Um, and we've seen the result of that with certain countries like Sudan and South Sudan and the stuff they had to go through with people who considered themselves Arab and looked down on other people who were either Christian or too dark for their own liking. So and they fought like what 10 years over that. And then in Nigeria we have people who are um, right now currently fighting over who can graze on what land, and that might end up being a civil war. And that's also because of a cultural conflict. You have the whole Muslim and Christian thing, and then you have nomads who are coming in conflict with farmers because the cows, the animals that the nomads carry around, they eat all the vegetation. They ruin the farmers' crops and everything. And there's really no laws that limits them or limits the amount of damage that they can do. And that's because back in the day, that was their lifestyle, and now they're living the same lifestyle except it's damaging other people's economic benefits. So and it's hard to like change it because culturally they see nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
And when they're
go ahead, Meek.
challenged, it leads to like a violent confrontation. So I'm just saying culturally we might have to like arrange ourselves based on our ethnic or cultural similarities instead of relying on a flat black you know identity,
Right.
which is why I kind of like ADOS.
Right. Go ahead. Go
Dynast,
ahead.
he's correct though. He's sort of correct, Dynast.
Okay. Go ahead, Mika. Unmute yourself. Mika, unmute yourself. All right. Go on once.
Hello.
Go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead,
So
Mika.
I
Go
was
ahead.
saying, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was saying that African identity is very much a construct. So the white supremacists, when they came to Africa, they obviously, like Napoleon and his French people, went to Egypt and found the ancient Egyptian civilization, and they said it was a Negro civilization because people had woolly hair, the mummies had woolly hair and all this. But then they realized later that it wasn't politically convenient to push this narrative that Africa had the most advanced civilization. So they reclassified the ancient Egyptians as Caucasian. And that created this theory called the Hamitic hypothesis. I don't know if you've heard about it, but groups like the Berbers, the Somalis, or anybody who looks slightly different, even the Tutsis in Rwanda were classified as Hamitic Caucasians. So those groups up to this day still consider themselves somehow culturally Caucasian or something, because initially you can't say, why didn't these people push back on these terminologies? I think people didn't care. They didn't understand the political agenda that the Europeans are pushing. So the West Africans were classified as Negroes. So a lot of Africans, some Africans might push back on Negro because they identify it as West African. It's also a false construct. It's not based on anything. You will find that Berbers are much more closely related to West Africans. I mean, the Imazing people, they're much more closely related to West Africans than other Africans, even though they phenotypically look different. So the problem with Africans, I think the identity issue is that when Europeans came to Africa, they didn't accept that that we were not a homogeneous or monolithic group, because depending on where they went in Africa to explore, people look different. Some were lighter skinned, like the Khoisan. The Khoisan are yellow skinned. Other people are darker. Other people like the Nubian Sudanese people are much taller. In Southern Africa were shorter. So they didn't accept, they wanted this monolithic idea of Africa as a country. And I think even today with Black consciousness groups, they are still projecting this on us. So when people say they are not Black in Africa, a lot of times they're not saying they're not dark-skinned. They're not saying they don't acknowledge that they're African. They're saying they don't identify with the American political construct of Negro and all that. So that's really, when they say they're not Black, that's what they mean. But if you look at the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Sudanese, they had no problems describing their lands as land of the Black people, like Kemet and Kush, and Sudan even means land of the Black people. So they had no problem with that. So I think the African identity has been politicized for too long. Now, I'm okay with us having this collective African identity or whatever, but it should be understood that there are different ethnicities and tribes that exist within us, because if we don't accept those differences, we have issues like Rwanda, because questions come up about who's more indigenous, who's more this, and then what standard are we going to use to determine who is more African and who's more indigenous when the continent is just so diverse? So the Hamitic hypothesis single-handedly defined African history, but it defined it for the Western agenda. So all these categories like Nilotes, Kushites, and whatever, it's fake. Somalians will tell you that they are Kushites. They're not Kushites. The ancient Kush is Sudan. It's the Sudanese who are the Kushites. So all these are constructed, even Sub-Saharan. Sub-Saharan, I think, comes from the Hegelian dialectic.
But even Kushite Kushite is even a made-up term. You see, what you're saying is correct, sister, but I think the mistake we Africans, especially African intellectuals, have made is they fall for the okie doke. The white man says that Egypt is the most advanced civilization. Says who?
No, Sudan is the most advanced civilization.
No, but none of them are the most advanced. All of Africa was advanced. You get what I'm trying to say? That's the first mistake we make. We go along with their definition. That's why I said we have a crisis of self-identification.
When they talk about which one is most advanced, sometimes they might be talking about which one is the oldest, which one predates which one gave birth or emerged out of which one. And that's okay. I'm not going to split hairs.
But that's not what they're talking about.
In my opinion, I think Sudan,
most technology.
That's it. What they're talking about is technology, because for them, their idea of technology is this rationalism, right? And their system is based on rationalism. And, okay, you don't agree with it, but their system, that's right, Napoleon. No, I know. Listen, no, what I'm saying is that Western positivism, right? So when this idea of progress. So now you look at this Darwinian concept of progress. That's their whole premise, that everything goes from ape to man. That's what they're held by this nonsense. Whereas no African was no African. Say again.
How is that nonsense that everything goes from? Well, what do you mean?
It's nonsense. I agree. It's nonsense.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense in the sense that
gas them up. Humans are apes.
No,
okay, if that's your belief, if you believe that humans are apes,
Kasha, what's wrong with you?
Okay, here's the thing.
You can't
science, what you're calling
history. Come on, this is
what bullshit. You're calling science. What you're calling science is no different from magic in the Western sense, right? You can read up on the guy named John Dee. John Dee, hold on, brother. John Dee, listen, brother. Wait, brother, listen. Hold on, wait, listen. John Dee was Queen Elizabeth's sorcerer, a high magician. As a matter of fact, him and Mercator, the guy who created the maps that we live by today, were friends. He used to write Mercator letters. Isaac Newton, right, was the last of the Lucasian. Hold on, Isaac Newton was called the last occultist. Okay, right. So wait, hold on, brother. Wait, I'm getting somewhere. Wait, hold on, brother. What you're calling scientific fact is shrouded within cultural relativism.
That's
And the
not
reason why I'm going
true.
to prove it to you, wait, let me
Africans
prove it
have
to you.
always
Hold on,
known that
wait, brother, slow down. Let me say my statement, then you can debate it. I can prove it to you because if you look at, for example, how the Egyptians, how we hypothesize they built the pyramids, is different than how the Native Americans built their pyramids, which is different from how the ancient Indians approached their concept of mathematics, which is different from, and you can read Ron Anglash, right? He talks about how African villages are created on the fractal patterns. So these are all culturally different cultures coming to similar conclusions in terms of technology and different things, but they all didn't have one universal standard. The Western concept of education is based on universalism. So that's why you have a standard school, everyone goes to kindergarten, and you're managed, right? It's called man-age-ment, the age you're meant to do things. So when you're in kindergarten, you're doing this, then they program you till you finish your university, then you become, you work for the state. If you're a malcontent and you don't succeed within the Western system, you still end up working for the state, but within the prisons. So all of these things were designed. You can check out guys like Foucault. I'm not smart by anything. I just copied the European man in terms of learning their system. But what I'm saying is that the biggest mistake the African intellectual class made is they've fallen for the okie doke that Egypt and Sudan are these advanced civilizations when all of Africa was advanced. The whole thing. And if we accept that the whole thing was advanced, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think
Mika,
that's a legitimate.
Hold on, Mika.
Okay.
Let's pass it to Larry. Then we'll pass it back to you. Go to Larry. So.
Okay. Again,
hold on, Castro. Hold on, Castro. Hold on. We'll go to Larry.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to talk in regards to the video. The Ghanaian girl, she said a lot of interesting things. One of the things I picked up on that she mentioned, because I believe this was in the 50s when this was done, this debate. 57, thank you. She stated that when she went with a friend to a restaurant up in the north, that she saw the prejudice, that she was experiencing the prejudice. And they were waiting in a restaurant and they weren't being treated fairly, and she could tell that it was prejudice. Now, this is interesting because this is 57. This is before the civil rights movement. And of course, later on, we know historically, the civil rights movement was not just based in the South. Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights people, they went up north to Illinois. There's the famous footage when he's in Chicago and they're throwing little pepper bombs at him and the civil rights people. So it's interesting that there are things that I picked up in that video which preceded major things that would happen historically. Another thing the Ghanaian girl mentioned was when she was talking about Nigerians, and she said that in her country, she sees them as the ones, she said that the ones that are coming over are the beggars, the poor ones. But again, what she said preceded what happened, because in Ghana, they kicked out Nigerians roughly around that period. It was either the late 50s or the early 60s. Nigerians got kicked out of Ghana. And I think there was a time where the economy was doing well, and then maybe the economy was struggling, so people began to look for scapegoats. So they looked at the Nigerians. So it's interesting, those two things which she picked up on, which did, in a way, come to fruition. First was the civil rights thing in the North. The second was what happened with her comment on Nigerians and the Nigerians getting kicked out. The other thing was from the South African girl who talked about she faces discrimination in America. And I think you pointed out on it, the hypocrisy that she was being looked at as being this racist, whereas the country that she was visiting, America, was practicing the same thing she was practicing in her country. I mean, in the South, they openly said it was Jim Crow. In California and the Midwest, they practiced it, but they did it down on the down low, undercover. So that was one thing that she picked up on. And I was just amazed by how observant they were with certain things, which manifested themselves years later politically. And the final thing I was going to mention was I keep on hearing people saying that Africans and the education system is not teaching them about various things, and they need to be taught about this stuff. That's all well and good. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it works both ways. So in America, Black Americans would also need to be taught a lot about what's going on in Africa. So they would have to know that, yeah, we had colonization, but you also had Africans being used as slaves on the continent. So you would talk about what happened in Congo, how they were being used on rubber plantations. You would then talk about South Africa, the slave Cape colony, how Black people were being bought and sold and used as slaves on the land. in South Africa. You would also have to talk about slavery in Mauritius, the sugarcane plantations and Reunion Island. So I think it works both ways. And plus the Americans would also have to be told about what's going on with the black people in Cuba, their history, the black people in Colombia, Venezuela. It has to be both ways for it to work. Simply saying that we just believe all these Africans, they don't know enough about the American struggle, so we need to download it onto them in education. That's all well and good. But the Americans need to know the same thing as well. So both people can then have a dialogue where they understand each other's pain and suffering. That's all I have to say.
Guys, do me a favor, hit that like button again. Please hit the like button. If you're in the chat and if you have not hit the like button, do me a favor and hit that like button. All right, Kasha, go ahead and make your statement. You'll pass it to Jughead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to respond to what Gaston was saying. I completely agree with most of what you're saying, bro, with the analogies in Africa. However, my issue with the Pan-African community and the larger conscious community together is us as a whole. Like, we have a problem with acknowledging our connection to the animal kingdom for some strange reason. Like, it triggers them to say that, oh, you're related to a monkey. You know, white folks know this stuff. Like when we call them Neanderthals, white folks don't get mad. They understand, like, okay, that gives me the edge. That's how they look at it. So why can't we look at it when people call us monkeys or something? Oh, we're related to apes. Humans are apes. It's a scientific fact, and that's just my issue. But everything else you saying, Gaston, I completely agree with it. Africa being technologically advanced everywhere. The Ashango bone was found in the DRC. You know, the Ashango bone was the first mathematic tool. So I understand the Dogon over in Mali. They predicted that Sirius, the star system, was actually a binary star system. It's not one star, but it's two stars. They're so far apart, they're so far away that it appears as one. So they predicted that they didn't even have a telescope. I understand the technology advances Africa has, but we do need to connect the dot with the African kingdom, well, with the animal kingdom. That's all my issue is.
Jughead, go ahead, Jughead.
Danas, thank you, brother. Greetings, Danas. Greetings, Gastama, Kasha, Zulu, Alex Deluga, Black Lion, and Illyri. Yeah, the topic of your today's discussion, Danas. I missed the first hour, but I come in back when since we were talking about the Ethiopians, but the Africans. They're not white Canadians. They're Africans from those continents. As I said, there's variation everywhere. As I said, whether it's Sudan, the tall Nuba people, the light-skinned black people in Namibia who were the slight Oriental eyes, and in between, there's all variations in Africa. They're all Africans. The Africans are constant, not as we know. They're so there's different variations in Africa. Regarding what Alex said about Pan-Africanism not working, I disagree. See, Pan-Africanism is not about Africans being one homogeneous group. It's about Africa being industrialized, being militarily strong. That's Pan-Africanism to me, not one homogeneous melting pot. No, it's about Africa industrializing and removing the European Arab slave traders from our land. And that's our land. Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Kemet, that's our land. And those people there must be removed. If I say on the stream, I don't care. If I offend anybody, I don't care. This is war. And those Muzungus in Azania, Kenya, Zimbabwe must be removed as well. They're invaders. Africa's our land. I mean, I don't hate anybody. I have white friends, I have Asian friends, but we're called spade a spade. What happened in 1884 was an act of war against black people. That's not been addressed. So Pan-African, it's not about us. We are different, but we have one common enemy. Look what's happened to the blacks in Spain, or the blacks being sold to Arabs in Libya. They're not different. They treat us differently. So why do we? Jalen Clark was shot down 2 weeks ago in I forgot part of America. It's a Jalen, I forgot his name, but I apologize. I forget him. George Floyd. What's cool about devil Derek Chauvin? Derek asked him if he was FBA or an African. He just killed him. Timothy Rice was gunned down. Eric Garner, Walter Scott, both from John. Their killers didn't ask where they were from before they killed them. They don't differentiate. So why should we? That's just common sense to me.
All right, cool. Black Line, go ahead.
Can I respond to Jughead real quick, Don?
Go ahead, Gaspar. Go ahead.
I agree in theory. I think the problem of Pan-Africanism is twofold. Like I said, it's a crisis of identity because if you remove, let's say, right, like for example, if you remove the idea of theism, then atheists make no sense, right? So if you get rid of, let's say, in the hypothetical world, there is no whiteness, then blackness doesn't exist because remember, we were told that we were black from an external invader. So Pan-Africanism, if the Westphalian concept of Europe no longer exists, then Pan-Africanism, how does it work out? And I think it has to, and however, like the Collars, the Dynasts, the Jugheads of the world, you guys who are Pan-Africanists, the Brandons, you guys have to do a much better job figuring out how you're going to integrate the different varieties of ethnicities that people have that can still somehow be juxtaposed with the larger collective, body that, yes, we are under attack. I agree with that. But I think the theorists, you guys have to do a much better job of melding the two because you guys haven't done a good job of combining the two. That's why I'm like, no, I'm not any of those things. I'm Isoko first.
Yeah,
right? That's just me. I'm not any of those things. So I think you guys have to do a better job of melding the two without me feeling that I'm going to lose my Isoko identity and be thrown under this universal concept of blackness.
I disagree. See,
yeah, can I reply to
well,
that?
that identity crisis permeates to the fact that we can't associate ourselves with the animal kingdom. So you further prove my point.
See, I guess them up.
I want to reply to Jughead as well.
I'm listening.
I think Pan-Africanism, the only way it can work is if we keep it economic only, because I don't think we can completely disregard the cultural differences that between the ethnic groups and how some of the cultures are not really, they butt heads. So I don't think we can overcome the culture some of the cultural differences. And if we kept it economic and just based on industrialization, as you said, and connecting the infrastructure, then that would be the best way to do it. And you said something about how North Africans, Algerians, Moroccans, they're not, that's our land, right? And
Correct.
we need to kick them out. But in Mali, during the Tuareg rebellion and how they started the civil war in Mali, there were Africans that were helping the Tuareg try to defeat the Mali military and succeed that area of Mali from succeed completely from Mali. There were Africans that were fighting in conjunction with Arabs. So I don't understand how you would have to get to the Africans first before you even try to get to the Arabs, is what I'm saying.
Correct. So, Alex, if I respond to what you said, Alex, Adam, cast them up. First of all, you're correct. So it's also some leadership. So the problem we have, when it comes to us, I see is lack of leadership. See, Africa right now has no political leaders right now. They were killed, they're all cowards generally. They're retarded, they're self-indulgent, cowards, refuse to empower us and move forward. They allow Africa to be resource raped by now Chinese corporations now. We're raped left, right, center. So, advocating Pan-African to me is about first Africa's in areas where common enemy. Africa has to industrialize around the core. Obviously, we can't just amalgamate the 1,000 different tribes. And that's not, that'd be impossible. You're right, Alex. But first of all, like in 1957, the Europeans formed the then EEC, the European Economic Community, in 1957, which is in Luxembourg. What can we do the equivalent? Where we industrial, it's not about all the tribes joined up together. No, it's not happening in Nigeria alone. 100 different ethnic groups, let alone the continents. So we're realistic. People like myself, Brandon, we have done a good job. But the problem is, Pan-Africanism requires hard work. And most blacks don't want to do that. That's the problem with most black people. We'll sit back and wait for the minority to do all the work. That's the problem, Alex. Majority of people that should be, instead of having all hands on deck mentality, wait for the minority to do the hard work, but majority sit back and wait. That's why we make slow progress. It's not going to work.
But Jughead, you have to give practical ways. You got to give practical ways as to how you can merge the identities. You see, I'm not against what you're saying. I think, again, you guys got to go back to the drawing board and give practical ways as to how you can combine these African ethnicities and these African identities within the confines of your Pan-Africanism. Because what ends up happening, here's the thing, because like in the chat, you got Brother Untouchable, who's a good, friend of mine. He's asking questions about the British Empire and how the Europeans were able to do it. You guys have to study the history of Europe. Europe killed millions of their own people. They burned their women. They called them witches. They did a lot of freaking crazy stuff in order for them to create the universal idea of whiteness, that Westphalian concept. There was a lot of sacrifice involved in doing that. Nobody's willing to bell the cat when it comes to doing that in Africa. That would mean you're going to have to kill a lot of Africans to get rid of the identity. In order to be like the European that we're looking at, that means we're going to have to implement some of those things on the continent. You're going to meet a lot of resistance. So the Europeans created themselves in these so-called strong Machiavellian states where, it's pretty much mafias, right? So now the king has two bodies, blah, 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 these Machiavellian states. So now they're able to, implement whatever policy from the metropoles, and it affects those people on the outside. A great book you can read is From Peasants to Frenchmen. And you can see how these identities are created. So what I'm saying is that you guys got to go back to the drawing board and figure out ways that you can merge these ethnicities that are so quote unquote problematic or so there's a lot multiplicity of them, and then figure out how you're going to merge that with your Pan-African logic, because it's you're running into the wall doing it the way you guys are doing it now.
Guess what? I don't mean to be bully. I'm sorry, Prince. I don't mean to be bully. Guess what? Listen, remember, I'm talking too fast. It's about merging identities. That's not going to happen. There's too many. It's not about, as Mr. Simon said, it's about the leader getting leadership with integrity, a vision, and united economically first. You're not going to merge identities. There's too many. In Nigeria alone, there are about 200 ethnic groups. And then on the continent, it's not about merging us into one merging identity. It's not going to happen. No, it's about recognizing a common enemy externally, we want to have destruction, and bring our economies together first. That takes leadership with vision. Like Gaddafi tried. Gaddafi is narrow, but at least Gaddafi had integrity. Gaddafi tried in 2011. But the Pan Africans left him alone. It was killed by Obama, Hillary, Sarkozy, and Cameron. African leaders just stood by and watched. The cowards stood by and let him be killed. So it takes leadership with integrity and courage and backbone. Those are merging identities. That's not going to happen at Gaston. There's too many of us. We're proud of our cultural, ethnic groups. But rightly so. It's about the leadership coming up on a macro level. And forming a common bond. It starts there. It's not about merging identity. There's too many. It's not going to happen. There's too many. Gaston. We're not saying that. It's not going to happen. We're realistic. It's about merging. Stopping the resource rate first. National resources, taking control of our resources back from the corporations like Shell and Esso in Nigeria, ripping the resources. The coltan in the Congo being raped by Western all these phone companies raping the coltan out. That's got to stop.
Yeah, I mentioned that, I think it was last week when I was on here, I mentioned what you were talking about the mineral resources and the companies like Anglo-American PLC, to name a few. And I mentioned them. I'm not a Pan-Africanist, but I've always thought in regards to Pan-Africanism, it's a mindset, it's the way you think. And all these dramatic things about, oh, we unite everybody, we have one language, one president of Africa. I've never really thought that was what Pan-Africanism is about. But people keep on saying that. It is a mindset where you in the diaspora will make an effort to work together to empower yourselves politically and economically. So in America, the Black Americans would come together, whichever state they were, and they would do things to help themselves. And then the Blacks in Colombia would do the same things. The Blacks in Brazil would do the same things. It wouldn't be a case of, oh, let's wait for the continent of Africa to sort out its problems. The Africans in each of their countries would be making an effort to implement policies to empower themselves. So they would have to deal with these multinationals that are digging resources from their land. Congo would have to deal with the company, I've forgotten their name, that takes out all the cobalt and doesn't reward the country or its people. Because I mentioned these organizations because they have a great deal of power. These organizations are able, as I mentioned earlier, they're able to lobby the government. Some of these companies even have their own private military force and their intelligence. They're that powerful. So, you know, that's how Pan-Africanism would be. It's not this, oh yeah, you have to give up your identity, you have to give up your tribe. But the problem is, even though I'm saying that, it's still going to fall on deaf ears, because people will still come on and say, oh, Pan-Africanism, you want one president, you want one language for everybody, and everybody has to think the same way. No, we all come together. There was something I wanted to show to give people a degree of hope. I don't know if Dynast is there. I wanted to share my screen, but if he's not there, what I'm going to do is...
I think it'll be hard to share this. Oh, somebody just dropped off. So go ahead and try to share it. And after that, we'll pass it to Black Line. All right, go ahead. Try to share it.
Right. Let's see if it pops up.
And guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button again. Please hit that like button. You come to the chat room. Please hit the like button. All right, let's see here.
Like I said, I'm not a Pan-Africanist. I don't actually have a problem with them. I wanted to show you this. This is getting quite old, this piece of info. It says here, government to export 375 Ghanaian nurses to Barbados. To me, with what little I know about people coming together within the diaspora to help each other out and empower each other, I think this is a good example. Ghana, it says that the government of Ghana has agreed to send 375 Ghanaian nurses to Barbados to work in that country's government health facilities to ease the acute shortage of professional and qualified nurses confronting the health sector. It goes on to say some more about here, and he talks about how they're very happy in what's the country, Barbados, that they're being helped out by the Ghanaians, and this is what I'm looking at. You know, it starts off like this. I mean,
excellent news, very good stuff. That's perfect.
We've got the leaders here, and the Ghanaians are not saying, right, you Barbadians, you now have to speak Ashanti or Twi or whatever. It's not about that. So it's just helping each other in the diaspora.
Larry, I would say this: the Pan-Africans that are, you know, wanting this, you know, everybody should speak one language and all that. Those are like the extreme ones. I mean, I know that's kind of delusional. That's not going to happen. We're not. That's idiotic. Like, that's not going to happen.
But that's it. It's not a far-fetched idea. So I guess they're the extreme ones. But Pan-Africanism. The reason why I'm not a Pan-Africanist, I don't hate them, I don't despise them, I don't even like arguing against them. Even when Brandon says stuff that's irritating, I try and bite my lip, because I don't really, I mean, how can you be angry with a Pan-Africanist? They want black people in the diaspora to come together and empower themselves. What's to be angry about that? But the thing I find is you have to be careful, because over the period of time, there's so many different schools of thought for Pan-Africanism. Originally, it was simple. Marcus Garvey, you read the book Message to the People or some other stuff, you understand from that Garveyite perspective. 60s come along in the continent of Africa, leaders like Nkrumah, Philippe, I think it's Mumie, a whole bunch of people, Sankara, they start bringing in Marxism, socialism, the African nationalistic ways of thinking. So this now adds some new school of thoughts to Pan-Africanism. So sometimes I've been on panels where I've had one Pan-Africanist who will say, I'm an atheist, I don't give a damn about God. But then it's like, well, Message to the People, Marcus Garvey has a whole chapter on God. So the Garveyite perspective, God is important. And then I've got another Pan-Africanist who says, I don't give a damn about Marxism and socialism. And I'm like, well, there are other schools of thought where they take that very seriously. Sankara read a lot about Marxism, you know? So that's the only problem. That's one of the problems I have. There are different schools of thought. And two, I just think it's good to think outside of the box for a solution to help black people. Don't be narrow-minded and just be blind like a horse. And just
so, Larry, based on what you just said, if everything that...
Hold on, Gaston. I just want to make sure there's a lot of people who've been waiting. Larry, are you done? I'm going to pass it to Black Line.
Yeah, I'm going to hop off now. Thanks, but I don't have a problem with the Pan-Africanists, even though I'm not one. Thanks. Take care.
Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button again. Hit that like button as you come to the chat room. Make sure you hit the like button. All right, Black Line, go ahead.
Oh, I can wait till Gaston says what he needs to say. I can wait. It's fine.
Well, let me bring on Charles. Charles Gabdu, go ahead.
Yeah, what's up, everyone? Dynast, Amir, thanks for the platform. I definitely like these discussions. I think the problem is like we have a hard time of defining what blackness or Africanness is. Because initially African is more associated with Negroid, phenotype. And so, when people on the continent say, they're not African, they know that it's associated with the Negroid phenotype as described by the Europeans. So when it comes to Pan-African, yeah, like the brother Illyria was saying, it's more about cooperation, right? Because if they when it started in the 50s and 60s, if they all worked together, they could be a unified force against the Europeans. It wasn't really about being all a monolith. And so I think that's what we need to focus on, is really defining what it is and then working towards a goal.
Oh, can I go?
Yeah, go Black Line. And then we'll pass the gas him up.
Okay. Well, first of all, all you guys have some very good points. And I liked how the Ghanaian government is helping Barbados. That's really cool. That's a very good positive example of helping each other out. But also, guys talk about the identity thing. I wholeheartedly agree with the identity issue in a way. Not tribes or anything, but with the colonial issue. The one thing I kind of noticed, while you guys were talking about like the education and the mentality, it literally another version of the miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson is literally the exact same thing. When Mr. Carter G. Woodson, the Black African scholar, when he wrote the book in the early 1900s, he literally talked about the exact same issues going on in America. What's going on in Africa about the miseducation is literally the exact same thing. When it comes to identity, when it comes to economics, how we do things, our philosophy, way of life, is literally almost 100%. Just replace the word a miseducation of the Negro with African is damn near 100% the same thing. It's literally the exact same issue. And I can tell you from a personal perspective, I can agree to the fact the way sometimes the European worship is pretty bad, because I think it's my father, he's from Nigeria, straight from Nigeria, and the thing is he's African on to a certain extent. He's more Christian and he's more American compared to that, because I noticed the thing with him, he never taught us the tribal, the language, the culture, anything. I was African. He never taught us the drums, no mythology, nothing. And I had to talk to my mom years later. It's like, why didn't he teach us this? And she openly admitted to me that he was ashamed of it, because the time he met my mom, that was during the colonialism era. That's when he came from that era. And that discussion is like, and I asked her, like, did anyone ever did he ever talk about this? Did they ever got any mental help? They got any way to fix it? Like, no, he never admitted these issues. And I told him he should talk about these kind of issues, because he says that he never, it's like, even when I met him, he never said anything that was really African except for his accent. And years later, when I met a couple of African Americans who actually had African parents, a lot of them said, my mom didn't teach me anything African either. It's almost, not that all Africans who come here are bad or anything, but a lot of them, especially because I meet their children, they all literally have the same mentality of how Africa is bad. When they come over here, they want to be white, European, Christian, Muslim, whatever. Anything that's damn near almost anti-African. And it's a big issue, especially on the continent. And what's kind of sad about it is the thing is, a lot of the Africans, especially the tribes in the continent, they don't see it as a collective issue. Like it's no different than a diaspora. The only difference is the Africans know who they are. And the sad part is, Africans, we as Africans in diaspora can be great teachers to the Africans on the continent, because despite we lost our language and our culture and our tribal ancestral culture, we still, in a way, slavery, as much as how horrible it was a good benefit to us, because now we put that tribalism aside and saw the bigger issue within the race itself. Regardless of your Mende, Igbo, Hausa, whatever. We just gotta be free. That was a collective issue within the Africans in diaspora, and that's one thing a lot of Africans can learn from that. You don't gotta give your culture, your tribe, or this and that. That's fine. Just put it aside and look at the bigger collective issue. And that's one thing a lot of us we can at least do for each other. Because the sad reality is, because the thing is, during that time, like I'll tell you this real quick, the Willie Lynch book, it literally talked about how a lot of slave masters were scared of teaching all the Africans for different tribes the same language. It's like, no, that's a bad idea because they can communicate with each other, and they will find a way to use our language against us. And they predicted this, and that's what happened to lots of slave rebellions, because you made us have a collective mindset. So yeah, some of us had different ideologies, but in a way, the tribe are not having our tribalism or our African culture mentality. It helped us. What's taken from us is help us see a bigger picture. So that's one thing the diasporans can show you is like, yes, we lost it, but we saw the bigger picture, and we can see a better future, and we at least want to put it to the side and see the global issue. Because every African nation, regardless from the East or West or whatever, they have a lot more in common, especially when it comes to colonialism, more than differences. And if they're not at least willing to put that mentality to the side and at least get properly educated, even in the school system, just get like a book and just study the history, at least give it a chance. We can literally it'll be easier more to unite based on that kind of pain and that kind of trauma, and understand each other, that we're not so different. And that can actually make Africa a lot more. It can actually make more Africans more comfortable talking to each other, regardless of the tribe, and see what we can do is best for the continent, especially as a whole. Because we're not that different as much as we think we are. Besides the culture and the philosophy and everything, we can actually be better people, and we just, like I said, just put our culture and tribalism aside, and just start not only asking questions but be properly educated. That's really all. At least give it a chance to see if we can have a better future with each other and better relations.
That's a great theory, but you have to give steps.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. As long as we're willing to try it and give it a shot,
no, but you got to give the steps. You got to. That's what I'm saying. You go back to the drawing board. No disrespect. You go back to the drawing board and come up with a thesis. Because a lot of times the Pan-Africanists, they come on these panels and they just say, forget the tribal differences and do A, B, and C. No, y'all got to give a work step by step. Come up with the corpus. Come up with the body of knowledge. You guys are very smart, creative people. Come up with things that can bridge that gap. Because what you're saying for the people in the Americas, the diaspora, a lot of that was, a negative unification, right? When you come to America, you're forced to be Negro or Negra and things like that. It wasn't like black people just decided to all come together and be black in the United States. No, you had the Philadelphia Negro, who was different from the Texas Negro, who was different from the Negro of Florida, and you're still having that problem to this day, because black is not a unified concept even in the America. Right? Black is it's this floating thing that, black is really, black is 1 minute, black is hot sauce, black is Joe Biden telling you if you're not black, you can't vote, and all this other. So it doesn't even have a meaning when you think about it. But I just wanted to call out, and no disrespect to him, but Philip Lindsay in the comments, and it talks about some of the earlier stuff. He's saying that, we have to copy the European, because the European, they use institutions to create their permanent underclass. I hope he calls in. That's not African. This is my problem with Pan-Africanists, right? None of what most of them have ever said have come from a village thought process or from an indigenous thought process. You wouldn't hear a village man talk like this. You get what I'm saying? Go to your village, talk to the elders. They don't talk and they don't come up and espouse the things that you guys are saying about the underclass and permanent this and put these people here. And why are we copying Europeans? If we're going to be different from them, if we say that these people are different from us and they're horrible people, then why are you copying them? It's like we're trying to be selective. And again, I'm not saying I have the answer, but I'm definitely going to be able to call out and say, hey, listen, they talked about Marcus Garvey. They talked about all these other guys, Sankara, Nkrumah, men that I respect. But everything that came out of their mouths were out of a white person's playbook. Sankara is pretty much Marxism, right? If you're talking Garvey, he was pretty much a capitalist. All the things that they're espousing, none of them came from the continent, from a continental philosophical perspective. Not one. It all comes from the Europeans. So is Pan-Africanism really Europeanism? in another, form?
No, that's a.
Quick,
Oh,
quick.
go
Can
ahead.
I say
Go ahead.
something real quick?
Well, real quick, and then I want to pass it to Amara, to Niger, then Amara to royalty. Go ahead, real quick. No, go ahead, Alex, or whoever. Go real quick.
All right,
Go ahead.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I have a practical example on how certain African ethnic groups can unite based on cultural, ethical, and philosophical similarities. If you look at the East African Federation, or is it called the EAC, East African Confederation? The federation between Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and a couple of other countries. They're basically forming a federation based on their similarities. If you look at the countries involved in that federation, you realize that a majority of them are from of the Bantu ethnic group. So they have a similar culture, they have a similar lifestyle, they have similar beliefs, and they have similar ethnic codes. Not to mention also their languages are similar, so they can understand each other a lot. When they cross borders and do business with each other or try to settle conflicts. Um, you see, they just added the Congo to their group, but for some reason they haven't added Somalia, they haven't added Ethiopia, they haven't added Eritrea, they haven't added Djibouti, and that's for a certain reason. They don't want to flood their federation with people, that have a radically different mindset or a radically different lifestyle to the other people that are currently in the federation. Even though they call themselves the East African Federation, they added a country in the Congo instead of adding Somalia, which is right next door to like a lot of the countries in the federation, instead of adding Ethiopia. And I think they have a reason for that. And I think that's how it should be handled as far as Pan-Africanism and African cooperation goes beyond economic um beyond economic ways to do it, because there's certain people that you wouldn't want flooding your country because of the mindset they have. Honestly, I wouldn't want to live in a country full of people who are trying to instill the Sharia law on my government. So why would you know flood my country with people like that? The East African Federation has, laws which makes it easier for countries who are in the federation to migrate, between each other. So they don't want people from certain countries coming into the federation and having, free access to all of the countries that are in that federation, which is why they're not adding certain countries like, Somalia. That's all I had to
All right,
say.
so let's pass it to go ahead to Niger. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, what I would say is that we all have multiple identities. I don't think this is exclusive of that. When we say people are black, it's just as we call white people white. It's not confusing, and you can still decide to identify yourself as Hausa. It doesn't still mean you are not part of the subgroup of being black. You might want to reject it if you want. It's like saying a human being decides that they want to call themselves a dog and we should exclude them from the human family. There are certain things you can't exclude yourself from. Just like an Italian cannot say I'm not white. And that for me is relatively simple for me to understand. In terms of the different cultures on the continent, whether I think Gazemop was saying how we can actually do away with some of the toxic aspect of tribal politics or instincts on the continent. I think the way it can be done is the way we have seen it done. Europeans are some of the most tribal people. I think Gazemop, you mentioned that yourself. But they have managed to come together and walk it off. It doesn't happen overnight, but when you start working together with people, and achieving positive ends, generally confidence grows and the need to be tribal reduces. And I think that's how it's going to happen. And I believe that's what the African Union is trying to do. This is why they are approaching things in a continental, at the continental level, because if we achieve this thing continentally, generally the need for secession movement will reduce, because they don't have to worry about being supreme in that, having their own nation, since they have access to the whole continent anyway, and they have access to anywhere. Free trade, common passports. When you start having that, now you are sharing more in common. You start sharing some things in common, identity, not in other words, in common with other people. And over time, that will the generations that come after will start seeing themselves as a common people. The fact that we can even anticipate doing this peacefully compared to what was said earlier on is quite an opportunity. And I must say, it's something that we should, be grateful for, that we're even having the opportunity to do it in a peaceful way.
Dan, can I say one thing before I have to go? Dan, can I say a comment before I go?
Yeah, go ahead, then we'll pass the Amara Tunde royalty in the column. Go ahead, okay.
Welcome to Nigeria, my Nigerian brothers. Welcome, Color Genesis. I'll keep it short because I'll move.
Peace, brother Jughead.
Yeah, brother. Color Genesis, my brother. I love you, man. You're fantastic. I love your contribution.
Yeah, man. Yo, we got like the link site up, our website up, and start getting this going. That's what I said. The answer's right there on that website. Right there on that website.
Yeah.
Let him finish. Let him finish. We'll pass to you soon.
So, Alex, great contributions. Guest about fantastic contributions as usual. Too large, welcome. Yeah, look. Never make sense, people. Please look. This is important. African unity is not optional. We have to remember these people want our land, man. And these people, if we become tenants of their own land, we're done. People think African unity is not optional. It's mandatory. So if we don't empower, industrialize, we're finished, because these people, the population is increasing, especially every decade. The people that survive to the next century are people that are strong enough to keep the resources. People that economically, militarily strong to defend themselves will survive. Those groups that don't defend themselves economically, militarily will not survive. The weak will not survive next century. The cowards will not survive. The strong and all others will survive. So please remember that African unity is not optional. It's mandatory. Peace. Love. Take care.
Go ahead, Amar. Go ahead, Amar.
Hello, how you guys doing? How's everybody?
Doing great.
Well, the way I see that, I'm the number 3 in my clan to succeed my uncle as the chief of our kingdom, which is the king of our kingdom. I'm from African royalty. So my take on the whole thing is, if you want to know where you're going, you got to know where you come from. And most times when people are talking about Pan-Africanism, it's a 500-year-old concept. I am the custodian of an 11,000 years of history, 11,000 years of history. Okay? That's what it preserves. The roots of the black race comes from tribes. Okay? So, take into context, Africa has 3,000 tribes. Okay? 2,000 languages. Of those 3,000 tribes, 1,000 of them are in West Africa, for example. Let's take West Africa for example, because we don't have large tribes. We have large tribes, but they're concentrated in 1 or 2 countries. But we have thousands of tribes, 1,000 tribes. Okay, even the Europeans, when they were creating a colonial structure, they separated powers. For example, my tribe, the Tivoli tribe, were rebellious. We started off in Niger Congo because we were a Niger Congo language. We got Bantu in our DNA. We fought away from the Niger Congo Delta all the way to West Africa because the Fulanis in particular were notorious for everywhere we settled. You know, they came at us and try to take our lands. Secondly, we were one of the last tribes to convert to Islam. We're 90% Muslim, but we have a heavy dose of African spirituality. It's highly integrated in our culture. So when people talk about the concept of Pan-Africanism or the concept of Black, which is a relatively new concept, you know, from the tribes, which are the roots. When you want to look, when you set the bar, people tell you how far it was, which are the roots of where everything started. You got to take that into consideration and integrate it when you're going forward. Okay, now the idea of these nationhood is 60 years old or 70 years old compared to the kingdoms in Africa. Identity, clear-cut identity. When you are Timni, when I'm Timni, I'm still a Black person, but I'm the Timni variation of a Black person. You don't cut my my roots off to be Black. It doesn't work like that. You see what I'm saying? Another thing is this nationhood, where it has the biggest support is big cities. Because the big cities is where, one, the educational system, the European educational system was highly implemented. When you go to the towns and the villages, it's a completely different scenario, where there's lesser European influence and where the old systems in place is still there. So the concept of abandoning people that want to say you abandon your tribe to pursue being Black or Pan-African is complete lunacy, in my opinion. You got to go 11,000 years back.
Amar, you can't. Amar, you can't blame.
Let me finish, please. Let me finish. Okay? If you want to know where you're going, you're going to know where you come from. 11,000 years of history need to be kept intact. Even the Europeans. The number one thing the Europeans have.
Hold on.
Can I finish, sir? Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I please finish?
Well, 11,000. Is it written?
Can I please finish, sir?
Let him finish. Let him finish. Oh, go ahead.
Can I finish?
Go ahead, bro.
Can I finish? Okay.
Amar rambles a lot.
Okay. First of all, we got to have respect. You're talking to a sitting royal. Okay. You're sitting talking to a sitting royal. Okay.
Stop with that sitting royal. Your royalty doesn't mean nothing to me, man.
Man, first of all, you're not damn African. Just get the
your royalty does not.
Man, get out of here, man.
Okay, see, look, sir. Look, this is disrespect I'm talking about.
But Colin, I want to hear the guy finish, Colin. You can't just jump
in there. He's a clown. Get him the hell out of here.
But let him finish.
I know, but I'm saying I heard him before. He talks a bunch of nonsense and whatnot. He's royalty. You ain't African. All this divisive stuff. That's what I'm talking about.
Colin, I want to hear him though, Colin. Like,
have him come back on.
Hey, Amara Timna royalty. Call back in.
All the Gassabop was talking good. Jughead talking good. This guy is talking a bunch of nonsense and whatnot. That's the problem with Pan-Africanism and whatnot. Nobody takes it seriously because we let jokers get on here talking a bunch of nonsense and everything and don't pull us together and bring us forward. I'm royalty. You got to bow down to me. Get the fuck out of here. This is right. Why I asked him on one show the other day. How is it that you guys can't do a little stupid thing like refined cashew nuts or whatever? Well, the Vietnamese, they're coming bomb to oblivion, and they're gonna come over to your country, taking your shit from you, and you gonna sit here and preach to me about what I'm not doing? Get the hell out of here with that shit. We have to set the record straight, man. Pan-Africanism is an idea. Unfortunately, it's not accepted by people on the continent. It's not a force of law. You know, the what's it called? The Taliban, the ISIS, and the Caliphate and everything. They got millions of dollars worth of oil money to take that the crazy ideology of Islamic State and make it happen. Nobody puts any money behind Pan-Africanism to make it happen. If Pan-Africa had the money and the influence, we have control over the oil, and we have a military and everything, it'll be a different story. Everybody will be a Pan-Africanist. But everybody clowns Pan-Africanism because we don't have the money. Because it's easy to run the white zaddy for everything. It's easy to run the Chinese zaddy for everything. Everybody keeps talking, oh, Pan-Africanism is a failure. No, it's not a failure. It's just that we have done too many weak cowards in the black race who are going to let the other man take everything over, and we're not going to be here in another century. God gave everybody this right to fight this earth, and he put you on the earth like the white man. What earth does not belong to the Chinese man? He does not belong to the white man. God gave us Africa and our part of the world, and we can't even freaking manage that. That's the freaking problem. That's what freaking pisses me off. And we got people here with that pseudoscience and nigga, get out of here with that shit. I've had enough of it. Excuse me, folks.
All right, America's First Rifleman, go ahead.
Yeah, that other brother, he was kind of babbling a little bit. I was kind of, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh shit. Okay. Anyway, I really kind of lost what he was talking about. So, but Kyle is right.
I can explain it, but go ahead.
Well, go ahead and explain it to me.
Not that I necessarily agree with everything he was saying. One point, and I'll just say that one point, and I contend with that point, is that a lot of the ideas that, the Africans in the diaspora who you guys encounter are these city Africans. And so when you start going into the towns and the villages, there's a great divide in terms of the thinking and the mentality of the so-called local Bushman African and you advanced Africans. And that has to be, that gap has to be merged. And I'm glad Philip has come on, because I didn't want to call him out and say his statements incorrectly. Maybe he can express what he was trying to say in the chats a little better. But I hope that makes sense, America's First Rifleman.
Thank you. Thank you for adding clarity to that. The one thing I did want to say is that I get that there's a lot of different schools of thought of Pan-Africanism. Really, mostly, I think it's just half of it's just people blabbling on the internet and then getting a following, and then people thinking that's another Pan-African school of thought. My main thing is, or just how I've gotten into it, because I'm obviously relatively new, is taking action individually, obviously doing what's individually solvent for yourself, whether it be financially and spiritually and stuff like that, making sure you're good to where you're not a detriment to another African, and then go around with other Africans and coalesce around whether it be an economic goal or a political goal, and just keep going at it. Just something simple. I think people tend to overcomplicate it a lot and make it something it's not. Unless I'm talking crazy, somebody can correct me, but I just like to keep it simple until it does have to be, I guess, not complicated, but just made a little bit more advanced. So that's all I had to say.
All right, go ahead, Philip.
Let me interject something before Philip gets on. Hey,
Philip, go ahead, Philip.
Hey, guys, let's say this one point to Rifleman's point when he was saying.
Well, can I hear what Kyle has to say?
Okay. One mic. Let Philip go, because your one point is going to be very long. So let Philip go, then you go after Philip. All right, go ahead,
hey, guys, can you hear me?
Hear you just fine.
Yeah, go ahead, Philip. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you were saying in the chat.
Okay, beautiful. And let me start off by saying we're just having a discussion and gas them up. And everybody on the panel, all my favorites are here. First Rifleman, Caleb, Tunija, Alex. So listen, my thing is this. I understand exactly what you're saying, Gassim, that you've got a situation where the African continent is heterogeneous and that there has to be a step-by-step process as to how I refer to it as a code of conduct is developed. That was your point, correct?
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is that the Pan-Africanists, that'll be yourself, Kala to Niger, Brandon, you guys have to come up with the corpus that actually can find a way to merge the gaps that exist. There are a lot of gaps, and I think there's a lot of philosophical, just economics, politics, and even the word economics and politics are European in origin, but I don't want to get into the linguistics or semantics of that. So I'm just saying you guys should do a better job of bridging those gaps.
Okay. And so here's what I was trying to express in the chat. And I can explain why I came to that conclusion. But what I was trying to express was this, that part of the issue, in my view, or the problem, is that the European borders created a situation where the already existing problem of ethnic competition was intensified. So you have various groups that are split across countries. And so the first thing that I was saying was that, look, this thing that they're doing in Southeast Africa with the regional trade bloc, so that the smaller countries can intertrade and basically interchange with the world as a region as opposed to as an individual country. So you don't have countries like Burundi or Benin or Togo or Gambia trying to compete with China. That's not a real thing because their economies are not as complex, and they don't have the industrial might to be able to compete. So my first proposal or solution is to have the various regions have an intertrade as a region and then intertrade with each other as regions. So in this particular scenario, West Africa would trade with Southeast Africa. For example, Southeast Africa just had Congo join their trade region, and that was huge because their economy is much more dynamic. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. I agree with you a trillion times. As a matter of fact, if you look at the history of Africa, we've always done that. Like people make it seem as if Africa was not trading. Even within language, there's a great book everyone can read, how Igbo and Yoruba became separate languages by a Nigerian linguist, right? And when we think of how the European linguist and the Bantu, Kwa, blah, 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 and all that nonsense, this Nigerian linguist is able to sit down and say, wait a minute, Igbo and Yoruba have actual many similarities, which the average Nigerian in Lagos and Victoria Island and the elites wouldn't even comprehend. You get what I'm saying? So we've always been trading. I think what we have to understand is that the European has an agenda against us, and we have to figure out ways, again, to bridge that gap. If it's Pan-Africanism has to find a way to accept those cultural ethnicities and identities. This idea that you're going to do away with them. Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
Gas. Let me say something, right? Well, for us, I've been saying this for years, right? I've said it. Even when I wrote my book, I put that in there. I wrote many different blogs. I would say Pan-Africanism, the idea of Pan-Africa was born on the slave ships. Okay, there's an old African proverb, so saying men chained together are brothers. Right,
I agree.
You weren't chained together, right?
That's a show we got to do tomorrow. Pan-Africanism was born on the slave
ships. All right, it was born on the slave ships. Look, it's born out of duress. See, the whole thing is this: when people talk from a vantage point of on your land, right? African Americans have more actually in common with people like the Gypsies, the Kurds, and many other the Wiegans, and many other landless people around the world, right? That's a totally different dynamic when you're in captivity, okay? When you're in captivity, the imagination of the African American always dream about this utopia, right? Wakanda, you know what I'm saying? Chocolate City, you know what I'm saying? All this stuff like it has been an African American imagination years. Liberia, this free land, the promised land, Africans don't have that. They're already on the land. So they're two different vantage points, right? We have a manifest destiny. We want to we a Pan-African. We want to have this utopia where black people just live together and everything like that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's our reality, right? Africans on the other, well, wait a minute here. We got kind of things set up here. And you look at Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Whites have been coming in and getting Nigerians are making millions of dollars together. Their kids, Nigerians are sending their kids to prestigious schools over thing. So they living in the modern city and everything. They don't have the same vantage point as an African American who, although the most advanced black people, are still in captivity. You can have a tiger. He can be sitting in a thing, but if he's in a zoo, you don't have the same respect for him as you do a tiger in the wild. He's tamed. And so therefore, the African American, right, what you see in Pan-Africanism is this idea that I want to know what it's like to be able to rule myself. I want to know what it's like to be able to govern ourselves. That's why when you see African Americans, right, and a lot of Africans laugh at this, right? They say, I go into Africa, I see people in power that look like me. And Africans like, what's the big deal about you? Somebody looking like you. They don't understand that. And I ask my African brothers, be a little more sensitive to your African American brothers and sisters. We go through a lot of pain and we lash out sometimes, like the ADOS FBA and stuff like that. Just be a little more compassionate, when you see African American, oh, wow. Even though, people go to Africa, people like, that's not, there's no big deal to you seeing an African person as a head of state, as a running the airport and stuff like all black people. Like that's the experience. Only you'll never hear Nigerians say that. Oh, I went to South Africa. I see all black faces and everything. They're used to that. The African American isn't. So part of Pan-Africanism is the African Americans trying to get what you guys have. What the Nigerian has, what his Ghanaian brother has, what his Kenyan brother has. That peace of mind.
So, Colin, can I ask you a question based on what you just said?
That's all I'm gonna say.
Can I ask you a quick question to you and Philip based on because I would love to hear both of you guys' response to this. My question is one, I totally agree, and an earlier person said this in the program. I've always said the problem of that empathy, right, that Africans lack when it comes to the African American struggle for existence, and the Africans in whether they be in Brazil, Cuba, the Africans in the diaspora, their struggle for existence is because no one educates them on that. The school system, you go to the WIAC, which is the West African Examination Councils, there's no slave trade taught. As the brother was saying, we learn about Lord Lugard, the leader for Sierra Leone, we learn about Lugard, we learn about Mungo Park, we learn about the Macpherson Constitution in Nigeria. No one teaches us about the slave trade. No one tells, there's no sonetta on, in Lagos Island when diners go shopping that's showing African Americans being lynched. Because I'm telling you, if the Africans had somebody who was on the corner showing them what these Euros did to them and continuously do to them, they would have a different understanding. But let me tell you, them African elite, the first ones trying to squash that because they love sitting at white daddy's table. Them African elites that come to the UN that you guys see, that go to your schools, your HBCUs, that say they represent the African on the continent, those are some of your worst enemies, just like your Congressional Black Caucus. Right, but my question is that what you're saying about having your own so-called quote unquote nation state and institutions, is there a possibility that African Americans, like what Dynasty is doing and what again I like to call them out, may rest in peace, Grandmaster Amin Ra, what they were doing, where they were going into the continent, having children. I think Dynasty had a brother who I forgot, he was in Mali. He said he had like 3 wives or something already, Dynasty. I can't remember what he said. He was in one of the countries.
In Mali with 3 wives.
He was some country, right? Yeah, and he started like a program and he was helping them, and he got like wives and stuff. So he's enculturating himself in the community now. He's planting not just so-called seeds or a foundation. He's literally on a biological level, on a cellular level, planting seeds in that continent. And I think to a certain degree, and this is just me as an outsider, because I'm a tether, right, is that I think African Americans are trying, or people in diaspora are trying to have an Africa from a distance. And it's like, no, you got to get down and dirty. You're going to have kids on that continent.
Well, let me ask you.
Hold on.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. here's where I respectfully disagree, right? I believe African Americans, right? We didn't leave the continent voluntarily. So we're Africans regardless of whether we wherever we are. We go to the moon, we're supposed to still be part of the continent. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in Africa. You know, go to. You know, my whole thing is this. My whole thing is this. If you have African Americans, right? Some of us will go to Africa, assimilate, and get involved with the African culture. My wife's African. You know, I know a lot of people that get involved with the culture and everything like that, pick a country and everything like that. But that's few and far between. But when you talk about changing the dynamic of what it means to be black in America, right? For that, you're going to need the world to come to the conclusion, right? One, that slavery was wrong. African Americans, that's why I said I never was for reparations. Reparations should be a nation state of our own on our ancestral homeland. That will solve the problem forever, okay? Because that nation state will be the most powerful country in the world's ever seen. Okay, if that ever happens and it has the support and integrated into Africa from a position, let me give you an example. When America was formed, right, it was an integration of separate territories came together. What you want asking me to do is come from Africa from a vantage point of weakness. We have to integrate into Africa from a vantage point of strength. That means we need build our own communities, right? If we're gonna marry with some people marry into African society, that's fine. But for the most part, African Americans, just like any other group of people, right? Because it's all right for Africans to say, okay, this is who we are, 400 years, this is who we are, this is how we see the world. And unfortunately, black people, right, white Africans want to get rid of this idea of race. Unfortunately, race is something that is going to stay with us forever. If people think that, oh yeah, we can get Africa. I seen I heard that Michael O. I call him O Boy, Michael O Boy, whatever his name is, Nigerian, talking about we have no problem with Pan-Africanism, but just the racist aspect. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. You don't go through 400 years and tell me that I can't be racist because it might offend your white friends. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I want to hear if
Black
Philip,
America, like,
what Philip's perspective is.
Hold on, Carl. Let's pass it to Philip. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, let me just go back to what Gassam was, and I think where we had the prick of I won't even call it dispute, but just what is the core, and that is twofold. What you just were talking about, Gassam and Kala, which you expressed eloquently. Look, I just watched Afro Think Tank yesterday, and what he's doing is just buying individual blocks in Nigeria and setting up local businesses and letting the people there work at the businesses and supporting the communities there. And he's expressing it in a way that he's not spending a lot of money doing that. Every diasporan black person could do that. It just is, having your resources and obviously being able to afford to do that, because any money that you're spending there, you're not going to be able to repatriate it without taxes. So, to basically say, this is a project I'm doing to build up assets. That's one thing. Another thing is this, and this is where I was going with Gassam up, which was, look, the Scots and the British are not buddies. They don't love each other. The English and the Scots, they don't love each other. But what they did do is they were able to come up with a strategy to be able to get the bag together. The French and the Germans hate each other. The mainland Chinese and the Hong Kong Chinese and the Taiwanese fought wars against each other, killed thousands of each other. How did they come together to get the bag? And it is my view, and let's deal with Europe first. What the Europeans did was they never really resolved their conflicts with each other, as you could see in Yugoslavia, which is now split into republics. What they did was
Catalan, the Basque region.
Exactly. They didn't resolve that stuff. They know that it's still underlying. And I actually have said on this channel, to a certain extent, if Black Africans could just step back and let them do what they normally do, which is fight with each other. But we somehow interject ourselves right in front of them instead of letting them do what they naturally do. But let me get to the point that I think Gassam kind of was like, well, what are you talking about here? What they did was they came up with an economic structure to basically, they never really changed their feudalism. They just adapted it. What they did was they said, we need a new round of peasants that's not us. So where are we going to get these peasants? And where are we going to get lands? Because land is limited. And what they did was when they got to the New World, then they started taking the land. Okay, so that first problem solved. Now, who was supposed to be the peasants? And this is very apparent in the US Constitution, that the peasants were supposed to be the natives and the African slaves that they brought in, that were going to be permanent peasants. And basically, they were able to stop the conflict within themselves by having more born losers. Basically, capitalism requires winners and losers. That's part of the game. So if you are able to make somebody else your losers at high numbers, then you can have more winners. That's not brain surgery. It's just basic economics. And so what I'm saying is, look, they didn't resolve the issues that we're talking about that the Africans have. They didn't resolve that stuff. They just figured out, here are some people that we can put some anvils around their legs by our institutions, and a large percent of them will be losers within our system. That's just the way that the way that they solved it. And you can see that.
So if you go into the villages in Africa, will you be able to implement that? And that's the problem. And if you do, is that African? Well, even if, let's say we did do that, can we still call it Pan-Africanism if that playbook is straight from the European page 304?
Quick thing.
Wait,
I disagree with.
Let me respond real quick, and then I'll hop out of here because I can't get back to what I was doing. But the bottom line is, no, we can't implement that. And this is something that we needed to address on the channel. I'm just going to raise it now. In every step along the way, the Europeans and the Asians have been willing to take sections of their people and make them wage slaves. Make them wage slaves in a way that they can pump up their industrial production. It is not indigenously an African thing to do that. And I don't think that the Africans can, and I'm including myself in this, we as Black Africans, that we can implement their system. So I agree with you, Gaston. But what we can do and what we need to do, because we got a clock here of, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years, where the agricultural prices and basically our ability as Black African people around the world to feed ourselves is going to become very, very dire unless we address this immediately, which is this.
Let me. Okay.
I was just going to say.
Guess what?
Well, Colin, let him finish. Let him finish, Colin.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Phil. Sorry, Phil.
Colin, I got it, man. You want to keep your idea? Let me just say this. We have to rely more on technology, particularly with our farming and hydro farming, to be able to feed ourselves. We don't feed ourselves right now. And with the climate change, you know, like the Russians and the Ukrainians are some of the primary grain exporters. Africa cannot afford to import their food the way that they're doing it. Black America doesn't feed itself anymore. All of these people like my family that came up from the South, and, you know, we had an economy within ourselves, that's gone now. So we got a real crisis. And what I'm saying is the solution, Gasama, and I could be wrong, is regional trade, and also to focus on technology, specifically on freight, high-speed rail, and hydroponic agriculture, to be able to get that trade for the people in the villages that Gassamup is talking about. That it requires an investment of the capital, which is one of the few things in the diaspora we have an advantage about, is we have access to credit and a more powerful currency. And to make that investment on the continent in a way where everyone can benefit and we can circulate those dollars. That was what I was trying to express. I don't know if I expressed it well in the comments.
No, perfect. Phil, please put your email in the back chat. Excellent,
All right,
man. We got to link up. Please
hold
put it
on.
in the back chat.
Let's pass it to let's pass
Okay,
it
I'm
to
out. Thanks, guys. Dinas, always a pleasure, brother. Thank you, guys. I love you guys.
And
Talk to
Dias, let me get this.
Well,
Let me get this one
Colin,
point in.
let me get these other two people. I know how long with it
Okay.
you can be sometimes. I just want to
Okay.
make sure other people go. All right, Kabaka, go ahead, Kabaka, then Jughead, and then somebody can address the super chat. Go ahead, Kabaka. Kabaka. Okay. All right, go ahead, Jughead.
Thank you, Douglas. I'll keep it short and brief. Carla Genesis, my brother. Then I come to calm me down, brother. You're African, okay? You're African. The guy I said before that was
Right.
Amari. Forget what he said.
Yeah, I deal with Amari all the time. He's a clown. He's a buffoon.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
he's a buffoon. I like Amari. I like him. He's a good guy and everything, but he's American all the time, right? Lives in America, lives a life of an African American, and talks Senegalese and whatnot. And he's like Prince. What's that guy coming to America? What's the yeah, that's who he is. he tells them about the richest rich kingdom, right? Yeah, these Africans are jokers, man. That's what the God, man. I deal with them for years. Yeah, I got kingdom, I got land. They tell these African American women and Spanish women how they're the prince of this or that. That's a game. That's how you get the girls, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Gas knows what I'm talking about. I just see the bottom line is ain't no Negro can get over on me, man. I know where y'all are going. I know my race. I mastered this shit. You know?
Tyler,
Yes.
one mic. He's from Sierra Leone. He's Sierra Leone.
Yeah, he's from Sierra Leone. Yeah, I know he's from Sierra Leone. I know all about Amari. You know, been down talking to him for years.
Yeah. Anyway, let me finish up. What I'm saying is, Carla, look, the last call was correct. Last speaker, Philip, he's right. In a nutshell, industrialization, that's the key. Across the board, because we don't produce anything at all. We import everything, into our continent. That's ridiculous. Continents are rich. We should not be importing stuff, But that's because of misleadership. Anyway, look, I kept it short and brief as promised. Carol Johnson, I respect, gas them up. To Niger, okay, love for the UK. Take care, and we will win. As a matter of fact, we will.
Yes,
win.
we will.
Guaranteed.
Black African Infrastructure Organization. We're gonna do this. Anybody else, Dinus?
I got something to say real quick.
Oh, go ahead. We'll
I
pass
think,
that to Colin.
all right, cool. I think gas them up is kind of over exaggerating the difference in beliefs in how Africans think in the cities and the villages. I think it's more similar than different. It's not as extreme as gas them up is trying to make it seem. And secondly, as far as tribes in ADOS or FBA society, as far as ethnic tribes and competition goes,
Have you been to any African villages?
I was born in Africa. I was born in Cameroon.
When was the last time you went to your village?
About 9 years ago. But I lived in my village for about 10 years, and I've also lived in the city. So I know there's.
So you haven't been to your village in 9 years.
There's a lot of people from the villages who go to the city and work all the time, and they live there as well.
No. I'm asking you. You haven't been to your village in 9 years.
Hey man,
No, I haven't.
Let the man finish.
There's a war going on in my place right now, so there's that.
And we need to talk more about Cameroon right here. What's going on in Cameroon is
we should have
the Amazonia secessionist movement. Of the Bible. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about and nobody talk about.
You guys let the guy. Can you guys let the guy just finish, man? I just want to hear.
The mainstream media. Mainstream media doesn't want to talk about Amazonia because of the whole French support thing. But as far as FBA goes, I don't understand how you guys can't understand how tribes work, but you understand how certain groups in America, like the Bloods or like the Crips or like the GDs, all those groups, you guys understand how those groups work, but you don't understand how tribes see differences in themselves despite being black.
All right, go ahead, Colin.
Okay, see, this is what I want to talk about, right? Okay, what we want to do is this, right? When it comes to everybody else, right? It seems like the only group of people on this earth, right, that everybody wants us to deal with from a position of weakness, right? if when I come to somebody, right, it's got to be dignity and respect, right? Right now, the government of the British government created the country called Nigeria. Even though I have ancestry there, I have no stake in the country. There's no place left. There's no place carved up for the people who were the victims of the slave trade on the African continent. Just like the people now in the West, the diaspora, Jamaicans, also Caribbeans, we're one tribe now called the diaspora. You know, why don't we have territory of our own to settle and integrate back in Africa's life from a position of strength, right? In other words, basically, if I come to your village and say, I want to marry your daughter and we're going to build the bonds and everything, fine. But just like history will tell you, right? Sometimes it does not work out. You have to have something to retreat to. So, okay, we tried to build this bridge, you know, Romeo and Juliet and all that, whatever, like, you know, whatever it is. And then people have to have a place of their own, you know? Until there ever going to be any, like, a cohesion between, like, why? Because one group of people, right, live on the continent and do the bidding of the Europeans, right? That's all it is. When you really look at Africa right now, every last single African country, right, all the government, the governments of the African military is not there to protect the country. It's there to protect the European and foreign interests and the people who are crowned king or president, El Presidente for life, whatever. That's all it is, you know? And they send their best and brightest overseas. Why? Because they're going to be a problem. They don't mind sending all their best minds overseas, right? There's one less problem they got to deal with, right? We as African Americans, right? The only group of black people with an almanac, the only group of black people with an encyclopedia, produced all the black racist inventions over the last 100 years, right? Gave the world so much, so produced some of the best minds, right? We're asking us to be like, okay, to ask us to come there, forget who you are, right? And not only that, what we are really capable of doing for our motherland. That's not going to happen if we don't have any say so, right? No one's ever talked about that. Okay, you go to Africa and everything. Oh, just come to Africa, invest in everything. But don't we have a seat at the table? How come there's not a diaspora? Each country don't have a diaspora committee or council or anything with power, you know, that can facilitate the diaspora settling back on the continent. No such thing exists. You know, no such thing exists on the continent. So it tells me that there's no serious effort to bring us home to integrate society. Now, when Africa gets in trouble, right, all these years, it was always African Americans who step up, right? Whether it was Ethiopia, whether it was South Africa, whether it was anything, you know, with the war in Angola, it was always us speaking up on behalf of Africa and the Caribbean.
Cubans and a lot of people from different countries.
Cubans had, I know, but Cubans had a government. I'll say African Americans doing this, right? And let me tell you how dangerous this is, right? When we're doing all this stuff, we're going against our own government in America, right? We're putting a target on our back on Africa's behalf. And what are the thanks we always get? Y'all ain't African. This guy, Amar, y'all ain't African. You ain't African. You ain't African. Africa belongs to us. So we got to go there. Oh, if you want to come to Africa, it's got to be on our terms. No, it's got to be on mutual terms. Okay? It can't be like, oh, you got to come here and just change your name, change like that. No, that's not who I am. You know what I'm saying? Some people might do that. Some people not like that. But that can't be a prerequisite because what you're doing is you're disarming me. You're stripping me of who I am. I'm African American. I see the world a certain way. I understand why my Nigerian brothers think a certain way. Ethiopians, but I'm an African American. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I see the world in black and white. I'm sorry. And you call me a racist, whatever like that. I see the world. Every time I see my African brother, oh, you guys with that racism, white people aren't that bad. You're like, look what happened in Ukraine. You know, and I'm like this. We as African American, the African American mind is the biggest threat to white supremacy. We're suppressed here in America. If it was able to manifest itself on the continent through our own nation state, our own territory and stuff like that, and we had our own military, government, diplomacy, everything, Africa would change overnight. But as long as it's stifled and you go there, oh yeah, well you gotta forget that radical stuff, leave that America stuff. Oh no. What happened to me in America is based like this. Our people never got justice. You know, nobody ever paid for the slave trade. Nobody ever paid for anything. So you got all this anger in there, and we're turning this anger in America on each other. And so I'm not saying Africa got to bear the brunt of it, but just be a little more understanding why we think the way we do. Why we're angry all the time. You know, that's what Africans really want to know. Why are you guys so angry all the time? And, you know, that's what it is.
I understand that perfectly. Why
Hey,
you're
hey, hey,
why,
hey, 290, do me a favor. Address this super chat real quick. Question to the panel. A lot of you said this today. Do you really believe that we won't be here in the next century? That's a pretty grim statement. What are your thoughts on that, 290?
that is a very big fear of anybody that is thinking rationally about the way the world works. And because if this window, I think the earlier speaker mentioned 10 years, and this window that is opening now, if we don't take it and a new form of something like the Berlin Conference settles in, we will be on the dining table. And we don't know what the outcome is going to be, because now they don't exactly need labor anymore. They don't need us there. And yes, that question has relevance, and there is a chance, it's not zero for sure, that we may be highly, highly compromised by the next century if we don't get our act together in the next 5-10 years. And this is urgent. And I've said it, when the time comes, we'll have to make a decade happen in 2 weeks. If we have the right numbers of people, because we have to move quickly. Because the way the world works right now is that you have China, India, America, Europe, they're all competing for power. But the moment it settles and we are not on the table, that prophecy is not exactly unheard. Why would they need us? I don't know why they will need us. Some of them are already saying we don't contribute anything to the world economy, that we should be the first to be depopulated on the face of the earth, from the face of the earth. So it's a serious stuff, and I really wish our people on the continent were able to understand this thing. They don't see it. 80% of them, you tell them about these things, they're like, nah, nothing is going to happen. They just think God is going to come and save them somehow. I don't get it. But
let me ask you
that's
something,
why we are here.
Niger, or not. It's like I wish Gaspar would stayed on. Is that we have a real problem.
Your line is glitchy.
So nothing on the village. So I don't believe people in the village are as they got access to cell phones. They got access to internet and stuff like that. So they're very well. They go to the city. Not stupid as people that, oh, we got to go to the village. You go to the village, they're kicking out. They're kicking it. They got their little bars and stuff like that. So this has a romantic idea of the African village and what is going to save our problem. No, we need to embrace the modern world. The black race needs to embrace the modern world and basically stop retreating from it. There's no getting around this. Africa has to industrialize, right? Africa has to basically build a homeland, a territory for its Africa. 200 million people in the diaspora that want to come home and settle, but will settle in a territory, in self-governance and autonomy, and then we can move towards building a united African continent. Right now, what you have right now is former colonial countries. Right now, France is now permanently in Mali and Guinea. They're not leaving. How the hell that happened? This is 2022. France is in freaking in Cameroon. No, they said they're not going nowhere. How the hell is that happening? France is in Cameroon. They got Biya up there on the scene. He's not even alive. He's probably dead before we know. And conflict is raging in Amazonia, right? English-speaking Cameroon, with that will be a game changer. If they got their independence, Black America would definitely have a homeland.
Yeah,
Definitely have a home.
the diaspora should support Amazonia.
And the diaspora should be make sure that priority. Amazonia
if you want to see an end to French influence in West Africa and especially Gabon and Equatorial Guinea, you should support Amazonia.
Yeah, we need to talk about that because no one's having these discussions. I'm like alone in this thing, and then Michael, industrialization stole the plan. But yeah, he's people say industrialization. Do you really know what industrial? I bet you if I asked him what industrialization means, he probably didn't. You know what industrialization really means in Chinese terms? Consume what you produce and produce what you consume, and export the rest. You don't have to forget. It's basically like whatever you need and everything like that, and mass production or everything, it brings the price down. Food production is what built civilization. Food preservation, food storage is how civilization was able to conquer other civilizations who had to farm all the time. People who knew how to produce food in large quantities and everything, and storage and everything like that. That means they can take that manpower and build armies and conquer. That's how Rome conquered the world. That's how Persia conquered the world.
Kala,
We don't.
Kala,
We
Kala.
yeah.
People, voices like yours should be heard on the continent when they are talking amongst themselves. I just put a link on one of the Nigerian channels where they actually talk a lot about what is happening in Nigeria and the governments and all the rest of it. But they tend to focus on tribe and all that nonsense. And your kind of voice will be quite welcome in those places because they don't know these things. You know, and African Americans, any of you that are here, you should be looking out to reach out to the continent and be telling them these things because they don't know. Some of them, they even call the colonial people masters, and they see them as like benevolent, and they literally look up to them. So it shows you, if they don't start hearing voices like yours from the diaspora, it's going to take a lot longer to change. Because I go there all the time, and you need to see the way they talk sometimes. That they are focusing on themselves. As a matter of fact, they are more focused on fighting themselves right now than even seeing that there's a greater threat out there. That is why your voices are actually needed there too. And the impact you're going to make is going to be disproportionately higher than you think it will be, because you don't have that tribal hang-up. You have lived with Europeans for 400 years. So
and let me tell you something too, Niger. That is the African American strength, right? We came over here. My ancestors from the Congo. I have my ancestors from the Congo and Eastern Nigeria, the Amazon and Cameroon. That's my ancestors come from. Most of, like 75% of my ancestors come from that. And then I got Mali, and I got Togo and Benin. You know, I don't have no ancestors. Sorry, Diane, in the Senegal Gambia region, none whatsoever. Okay. Anyway, but the bottom line is this: the men chained together are brothers, right? When we call ourselves African American, right? We're realizing that our roots come from all over the continent, but we're here now. We face the world as a united African front. And when I say African, I mean that where we make our stand. And African will be a state, a Black African state. That means where we stand, you know, where we make our stand. When someone talk about the British and everything, the English stand here, the Welsh stand here, the Scottish stand here, the people who are bred. You can't just be a Pan-African. You have to be bred for this. 400 years, 500 years of oppression created the African American, the African diaspora. That's why we think we do. It's not just African Americans. Jamaicans think the same way. You know, my brother Mamani, he's Jamaican. We all, those of us who are slave descendants, have a certain mentality. Maybe African Americans are being more extreme with it or not, but this idea of a Black state or Black identity and whatnot, it's not going anywhere. And the bottom line, a lot of people in Africa feel threatened by this, right? Because they want to build this kumbaya, one world humanity, like our boy Mike O in the chat. You know, he thinks this is a threat to his well-being with his white friends and everything like that. That we're talking all this Pan-African stuff, and we got to talk Pan-African. They talk about Pan-African problem solving. It's not just that. If I'm going to solve the problems, I want the bag too. You know, part of the bag is I want to live in Black states. I want to see Africa is for the Africans. You know, period. You know, everybody else is just a guest or interloper, an invader. That's the way it is. That's the way I see it. If you're white in Africa, I'll ask you, what are you doing there? If you're doing something to benefit Africa, fine. But if you're going to come here being arrogant, your ass is gone. I don't care how many centuries you've been on this continent. Africa belongs to the Africans, you know. It's not Africans share Africa. Yeah, good.
Genesis, you said something about having your own like land or something where you control. I thought that was the idea behind Liberia and Sierra Leone that African Americans have.
Well, let me answer that, right? Okay, Sierra Leone was a good idea, but Liberia was a good idea. But here's the thing, right? The problem with the Liberians was that many of them forgot why they came to Liberia, right? And instead of building on that, right, it was an unfortunate situation in Liberia. Liberians should have became the majority. That state would have lasted, right? But when they basically said, you know, we have this idea that just because someone's Black, right, they're gonna see things the way we see things. If you're coming out of slavery for 200 years, right, you see the white man, you see the world a certain way. Someone who's never experienced the white man, right, he's not going to see your vision of a Black republic and whatever you're trying to build, you know, a Negro republic, whatever. They're not going to see that, you know. And so therefore they try to integrate, and rightfully so. If I'm a Fula or something like that, and you're telling me that suddenly I got my identity. I'm a Kron, I'm a crew, and everything. You're telling me I'm a black man now. You know, well, what makes me a black man? It ain't till these people go overseas to America, right? And they experience firsthand what we're talking about. Then they come back to Liberia, Australia. Oh, I see what they're talking about. You know, yeah, we're black. Then they become radicalized. But it's all a mindset. It's all a mindset.
Oh
I
yeah, I
think
got one quick
that
thing. Can I say one quick thing
go
too?
ahead, go ahead.
The thing I've noticed about Africans and race is concerned is Africans will consider themselves black when there's something to benefit off of it. Like the
Hmm.
whole topic is Ethiopia. If you see the Ethiopians in Israel and you see how they get discriminated against, when you see them march and you see the signs that they have, it's focused on their blackness. They make signs that talk about how Black Lives Matter and how they're being discriminated because they're black and whatnot. And then you see Ukraine as well. There's usually some Africans who talk the whole thing about how there's no racism, blah blah blah. Racism doesn't exist. Black people and they're not black, and white people and black people are the same. Blah blah, all that bullshit. But when they need some kind of help or some kind
Of
of
course,
benefit, they'll consider themselves black. You see the
everybody ride
Ukrainian
on the
people
black
when they were
flag when it's convenient for them.
yeah, when the Ukrainian Africans were running away, I bet there's probably some Africans in that group who don't consider themselves black. But as soon as it's good for like media attention, now all of a sudden they're black.
I think people do that. Generally, there's this confusion where you have, especially like the bordering countries in Africa, where you have the Somalis or Egyptians. You always have some of them in their group that don't think of themselves as black, and you have others that think of themselves as black. Can you imagine somebody, one of them meets you and says, "I'm not black." Then you go and meet some other guy from that same group, and you tell the person, "You are not black." That person will be like, "I'm black." That's what leads to that type of confusion. Not to mention, if you are outside Africa, the other people will remind you are black. And this is what I said earlier on. You can't remove yourself from a subgroup when people see you as part of the group. You can pretend as if you are not, and you have the freedom to do that. But when it comes to other people seeing you, they will still consider you black, just like we consider Europeans white. No matter how much they don't want to be classified that way, we will still call them white. So that is what you are seeing manifest when you see some of these groups in Israel or even Saudi Arabia suddenly realize now that they are black when they are being treated like black people. Shocker,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's sad. It's sad situation, like I said. But the whole thing is this: Europeans have had thousands. You look at how this is the problem is, right? During the Mali Empire, right? Everyone had their own kingdom and everything like that, and they had vassal states and everything like that. The system worked perfectly, right? The system worked perfectly. We had the highest state. Mali means where the emperor lives, okay? And then you had smaller states and everything. These were great. These were West Africa, like I said, rivaled any other civilization in the world at the time as far as organizing government and things. People don't seem to want to understand something, right? And a lot of Africans want to omit this, right? When the Europeans came to the coast, right? That's disrupted. That's disrupted everything. Tribes who were marrying each other, getting along, trading with each other, everything, started to look at each other side eyes, right? And then everyone started jockeying for position with these Europeans who were bringing these new weapons in and influence. And then also the importation of guns weakened the power of the tribal councils and chiefs and even states. And so, therefore, this amount of lawlessness has been continued, right, even to this day. And we need to talk about that. Europeans basically came and created Nigeria, Benin, all these things, Dahomey, and all these other places on the lawlessness that they wrecked for hundreds of years. So this is what you have. This is what you have. You have all this confusion, slavery, Calabar, all this stuff like this, Yoruba land, all this stuff going on, and then Nigeria. Now you be civilized. You see how it works, and you wonder why there's chaos in Nigeria. We still haven't healed from slavery and all this other stuff that went on, and they're gonna make you a nation state.
Mm.
And that's what people need to understand. Now, remarkably, Nigerians have done well, stuff like that. But the underlying thing of the problem you see in Nigeria is why it was founded and slavery and all stuff like that. People want to forget slavery. They want to forget all this stuff like that. But all these people who got rich off slavery, got powerful off slavery, these people are in power now. And that's what I want to say.
I think if someone like Kwame Nkrumah was alive and we had one of them in Nigeria, you would have
They
had
rejected Kwame Nkrumah, though.
that's part of the problem. But they did he did emerge, and there was Sankara and a few others. If we had someone like that in Nigeria that comes out and was prominent as a Pan-African, I think the Nigerian consciousness would be slightly different than it is today. And it's a problem because we don't have any. We never had a major Pan-Africanist. Nigerians are Pan-African, but they don't.
Hold on. Ezekiel was a Pan-Africanist because he said he was influenced by Liberia. He went to Liberia, and all these post-Cold War people talk about Liberia. Liberia educated all the post-World War II African leaders, came to Liberia and studied diplomacy and how states and nation states work and stuff like that. If it's not for Liberia, none of these states, Lumumba, they hosted Lumumba, Mandela, Kenneth Kaunda. All these people came to Liberia and went out because it was the eldest state on the continent at the time. Always free African state on the continent. And so my point is this:
it's funny.
Vicky went to Howard University. He went to Howard University, and also I think he went to Lincoln University. Ezekiel, and he said, "Look, the black man in the West, man." He says, "Wow." He said, "I've seen black people running colleges and educated." He's like, so he brought that back to Nigeria, and he became Nigeria's first president.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know that, because people are saying he is Pan-African, but nobody ever highlighted it in Nigeria when I was growing up there. Nobody talked about him as a Pan-Africanist. They just call him a statesman and stuff like that. But what I was observing was an observation I just made was that after Kwame Nkrumah's passing, something very dramatic happened to literally kill that Pan-Africanist instinct in his country, which was the expulsion of Nigerians from Ghana. Maybe that was something that was deliberately orchestrated to generally kill that ideology. Because if you want to kill an ideology, you just replace it with another one. You replace Pan-Africanism with xenophobia. And that's what we got. And since then, even the Ghanaians that, what's his name, Nkrumah emerged from them, don't talk Pan-Africanists as much as you would think they should be, given how passionate and how universal his ideas were. So this is what we are contending with on the continent. Nigeria doesn't talk Pan-Africanism. It's almost like it's a dirty word, really, in Nigeria. I think Nigerians look at Pan-Africanism as if it's something that they do for other Africans, not something that they are part of, which is interesting. They like to help other African countries, but they never talk like being like a Pan-Africanist movement or anything like that. And I feel like part of it is because they don't understand that approach. And, the African Americans don't talk, all the African Americans that show up in Nigeria, they don't do Pan-Africanism like that. They just come to do business. They maybe, integrate with the culture and stuff like that, but they don't necessarily talk to the people on a Pan-Africanist scale. And I wish that they are doing more of that. And because that stuff, you see, what I see there is that when, like, people from you, Nakala Genesis, Pan-Africanist, Tribes Black, any of them, they go in there because the way where you are coming from is so far. That's from their point of view, from Nigerians' point of view, is so different and so Pan-Africanist. They will have to contend with that. But for someone like me that's Nigerian, I'm talking to them, they will first think, oh, where are you from? Or are you Nigerian? And what part of Nigeria? But you are from America, and generally they respect Americans. When you come at them, you make more headway faster than an African telling them that. You might find that a little bit counterintuitive, but when you talk to them, and you will be surprised how quickly they start moving ground from the position that they are in. So I really feel the voices of the people in the diaspora, from all the way from Brazil to the Americans, is very vital on that continent. At the rate they are going right now, it's going to take a lot of Pan-Africanists and on the ground to be able to change their mind, and it's going to be very hard. All they see is Instagram, Facebook. The West is benevolent. They don't see problems. They are all on WhatsApp. So what do you expect them to do? It's going to be a heavy lift to move that continent without people from the diaspora doing it. Can you imagine if I was in Nigeria? I wouldn't know all these things. I wouldn't be like this if I was in Nigeria.
Quick thing. I think that there's already Africans doing that, but help from the West would be good. But it needs to happen in a structural way, such as boarding schools. Boarding schools are really popular in Nigeria and certain West African countries. So if somebody was to create a boarding school in those countries, which they could teach the kind of history you're talking about, then that would be successful. But doing it on social media is not really the way to go about it.
Yeah, we need a whole educational system. Like, let me give you an example. The Habsburgs, Mary Teresa. You ever heard of her? Austria, Vienna. What they did was, what you wonder why Switzerland, that region, dominates the world, right? Why? Because they had to learn about the world. Mary Teresa basically built libraries, as tall as buildings, right? And she spent all this money and give people a general education because they know if people aren't educated, right, the people are just nothing but tribalistic animals. They're roving. But if you want to really build a real civilized society, you have to have education. I'm not saying education as in just going to college, passing a course. I'm talking about going in the library, reading books and everything, like giving assignments, right? Everything. In those libraries that, in Austrian libraries, they had, and Vienna libraries, they had everything. Then what happens is when people start learning.
You keep going in and out.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? When people check this out, when people start learning, check this out. They start debating. They start writing books. They start creating institutions. No, I think it's this way. I think it's this way. I think it's this way, right? But therefore, what happens is this: you insulate yourself from what we call the mob. The masses of ignorant people, right, who are gullible and basically who can be rabble roused and into chaos, right? People become more civilized, and they create what we call a gentry, a gentleman and lady society, right, which they can pass on the civilization onto the next generation in continuity. That's something the black race does. We don't have right now. We don't have that education. We don't have that sort of.
Hold on one second. Hold on. Let's do this. Amartine Royalty, unmute yourself.
Can I just respond quickly? Because people are saying some things.
Let me say this.
We got other people. Go ahead, Amar.
Yeah, let me say this. Let me make it really clear. Because all these people that talk, they're making suggestions. I'm in government. When I got a lifetime job, there are three structures of the Constitution that brings the presidential level, parliamentary level, and local government level. And then there are people who are like me, they have a job for life. Say as my uncles, so my both uncles, and the regents, all the elders in our kingdom, we have a job for life. So we are the ones that make the decision. So first things first, everything is compartmentalized. When you want to look at the constitutions, because my dad was one of the leading writers of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, Professor Ahmed Ramadan Doumbouya. Everybody that knows my dad will tell you that the first student union president of the oldest university in West Africa, Frobe College, was the first union president and was the leading political scientist in the University of Sierra Leone that helped write the Constitution when the British were bringing people across mines, and they brought these clear structures. When people talk about Pan-Africanism, where you get your biggest support today is in the big cities. Why? Because the big cities are melting pots. Every tribe is in the big city. You go out there to advance yourself economically, educationally, and monetary-wise, and moving up the ladder. You want to live the good life, the middle-class life, or be rich, or the place to be is in the city. So the city It's a different locale. It's a different geographical location. And the people which majority, 97% of the Africans that find themselves outside of Africa, that goes to these European countries and America, are from big cities or medium-sized cities where there are multiple tribes. So the idea of tribalism never works, because when you're sick, your kid is sick, you take him to the hospital, you can't say, I want a Timney doctor. You go for the best doctor. You can't say, I want a Timney teacher or a Timney professor. I go for the best. So they have different scenarios. Now, when you go to the smaller towns, which in most cases might have one or two tribes or dominated by one tribe, or you go to villages where it's dominated by one tribe, the dynamism is completely different. So it's who you're talking to. What African are you talking to? The village African, the town African, or the big city African? The big city African, 99% of the people that live in the big cities go to school. School is a big thing over there, the European system. It's a big thing. Going to school, advancing yourself, and getting ahead in life. And so tribalism is looked down upon in the big cities because you can't get ahead. You know, people need to work together in the big cities. They got no choice. Everybody comes from the village to the big city to better yourself. Now in the village, you don't have that kind of pressure. The village, you simply do your simple chores and live a simple life and continue what has been going on for a long time. Same with the towns. It's a laid-back lifestyle. You don't have to do too much. But the big cities, just like here in America, the big cities, you got pressure of rent, paying your bills, going to school, advancing yourself, getting promotions, you know. So you got no choice but to work together. So Pan-Africanism should really look towards big cities. Okay, now we in like in my kingdom, the only people that are there are people from my tribe. So we got to preserve what is there in that that land that's been going on forever.
Hey,
Nobody's not going to come in.
Amara, where are you in local Mosama or Port Local? Where you at in Sierra Leone?
No, I'm not. I'm in Sandaloko. Sandaloko. The kingdom of Sandaloko.
How far is that from local Mosama?
Local Mosama is the Post-colonial district. That's another Timney dominated area.
Right. How far are you from there?
The next door. Bombali district is next door. You go to Post-colonial, then Bombali.
And the reason I'm asking is when I bring my group in November, you know, we do our 10-day naming ceremony. I could bring them to your kingdom. But do me a favor, email me. Shoot me your information so I could
okay. I'll talk to my uncles. I'll talk to my uncles and see what it is, okay?
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so like I was saying, you see, you have to have the tribal makeup of the area. The tribal makeup of the area is what determines big city. Every African capital city, every African second city, every African third city is full of multiple tribes. You can't get ahead if you're tribalistic in those places. But I can get ahead by being tribalistic in Sandaloko, because no other tribe is not going to come in there and take land or do anything in our area that our people have been there for thousands of years. You see what I'm saying? So the dynamics are different from area to area, from one African to a different African. The town African, you know, is completely different from the village African, from the big city African. You know, big city Africans embrace European culture, Western culture. If you want to make it up, you got to adopt Western culture. You got to eat.
Now, let me ask Amara. Let me ask you a question, right? This is very sensitive thing.
Who's
right?
this? Who's
Genesis. Okay, I want to ask you a question, right? Do you consider modernization, Westernization?
modernization.
You said hold on. You said if you want to adopt the Western, why is it that Africans always? This is what I don't understand is this. You never hear somebody from the rural parts of China move to Hong Kong and say, "I want to be Western." They'll say, "I'll go to Hong Kong." You'll never see anybody move from the rural part of Japan and say, "I want to go to a big city, Tokyo. I want to be Western." Why is it that only when in Africa, right? They consider everything modern Western. They give credit to the white man,
I
the white race. As if
disagree.
Okay, let me give
Africa.
you an
I
example. Let me
disagree.
give you an example. No, let me finish. Let me answer the
I've heard
question,
Chinese
please.
people say that.
No, let me answer the question, please.
Yeah, once
I'll
in a
give you a
while,
typical
Alex. Once in a
example.
while, but
Okay, I'll give you a typical example. In my family, my dad got a PhD. Okay? He listens to classical music. We speak English at home. When we go to the village, we speak Timini.
well, let me ask you a
Why? Because
question.
no, wait a
They're
minute, wait a
black
minute.
people.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Why is that? Why is that? Because my dad is a professor. I gotta excel in education. When you look to examples, when he's teaching students, he gotta point to me as a good example. If his kid can
Amari, what I'm
excel,
saying is this. Amari, here's a problem, right?
listen.
Okay.
Let
Listen,
me
I'm not
finish, Kyler.
finished.
Kyler, let me
Let
finish.
me
I just
finish.
want to hear him. Let me
Let
finish.
me finish. Now, on the other hand, my uncle, which is the king right now in our kingdom, is not literate. Does not know A, B, C, or nothing. Never went to school. His kids never went to school. He got 5 wives. Okay, I got a 15-year-old niece. Okay, because he had early childhood pregnancy. 16 years old for the European system. 13 years old in Africa, you can have kids. You don't eat with forks and knives, you eat with your hands. We have a structural system. So even within our family, we have 2 people, 2 different Africans, and 2 different belief systems. You see what I'm trying to say? So when my uncle hears my dad listen to classical music, he says he's making a lot of noise. He likes drums. That's what his people have had inheritance from day one. So what Africa presents is multiple options. When people leave the village, you leave it voluntarily. There's no mandate that says you should stay in the village or you should go to the city. You come to the city, if you like the way the people live, you go over there. If you don't
Hey,
like the
Mark, can I get a
lifestyle of the
word?
city, you go to the
Can I
village.
get a word in? Can I get a word in, Mark? You're long with
Go
brother.
ahead.
Okay, check this out. Now, all you just said, right? Okay, if you look at the so-called American Liberian culture and African American culture and Caribbean culture and everything like that, it was basically a homogenization of. You said the village, the African drums and whatnot. Do you know that in the Carolinas and everything like that, there are people still, and I had aunts and whatnot that practice African voodoo and stuff like
I'm
that.
aware of the Gullah
Slave descendants,
Geechees.
yeah, Gullah and stuff like that. They practice the drums and stuff like that, even in at black churches and stuff like that. So they combine that with eating with forks and everything like that. Could it be that the African culture, American culture, and the diaspora culture is a hybrid culture that we should all replicate so it solves the problem of differences?
It's choices. What Africa presents is multiple choices. If you want to think, if you come from the village, like my dad did, and you want to advance himself, you want to be a professor, you want to be in government. You see what I'm saying? He pursued it to the letter. My uncle, his brother, his blood brother, that's older than him, doesn't believe nothing the Western system has. My cousins had kids when they are 13. I got a 15-year-old niece. I got cousins that doesn't know anything by a book or carpentry. He knows it by pages. But tell him to replicate anything in that book, he replicates it. I have another cousin that doesn't know anything about mechanics. You open a book, he doesn't know how to read anything about fixing a car. But he knows he changed all the parts in Timini, the Timini language, like a carburetor, like
No, that's good. I agree with
pistons.
that.
That's what
I
I'm
agree
trying
with
to
that.
say. So some people
I
believe in
agree
it.
that I agree with that.
Can I
That I agree
answer
with.
Caligenesis
Hold
question
on. Let me
real
say
quick?
this. Hold on, Alex. Let me say this. Let me get this out here before I forget. If you basically have this, I wouldn't say like this. Maybe you could mix it up with Mendi and several other languages and whatnot. And I think that's beautiful. If you had like, Ethiopia a couple years ago created the periodic table of elements, right? Iron, sulfur, and everything into Amharic language, right? So it's uniquely there. Same thing the Japanese did. They take all this stuff like that. We don't have. See, the whole problem is this: those of us in the Black English speaking world, right? They'll say this is fortunately for. I'm not going to apologize for being African, right? We speak English, okay? Now, if you want to modernize the stuff, like we on the path to modernization, we could have basically created this in Mindi, this in Yoruba, this metric system in this language right here. So we have a uniquely African flow as we're integrating African culture back with our own. It just don't have to all be one thing. So we have a mixture. A jambalaya of different African things. Oh yeah, our street signs are in this language right here, mixed with this language right here, but we got this right here. So
Are you
that's what
aware of the
I always read
Creoles
about.
in Sierra Leone? Are you
Yeah,
aware
I
of the
know all about
Creoles?
I know all about the Creoles. I know all
The
about the Creoles.
Creoles.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I just want to ask a College Genesis question real quick. I agree with him that Africans should stop conflating technological and educational advances with being a Westerner or being European. But at the
Hmm.
same time, you have to understand that it comes from the educational systems and who set them up in the first place, and
Right.
how they're learning about technological advances, or how they're getting their educational they're getting more educated. They're doing it from a European based institutions
Let
that
me
were
ask you a
set
question,
by
Alex. Let me
colonists.
ask you a question, Alex. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you know if like all the African American vendors, like I said, I see this one thing where it made me proud years ago. It was back in the '90s, right? This Zimbabwe, beautiful Zimbabwean sister, right, was talking about Africa. It was like during the leading up to Mandela's election, right? It was a documentary, right? And she said, yeah, we have one oldest library on the continent, Timbuktu. She was just referencing it was real Pan African. And then she said, "Yeah, also the black. Where also we produce inventors. We have she was African. That just made me so proud that this African girl was basically naming African American inventors as part of her arsenal. Yeah, we have inventors. Look at George Washington Carver. Look at Benjamin Barry. Look at all these other black inventors. Problem is that there's this divorce. Africans don't understand. We have a lot of in that ammunition debate against the white man, right? The Chinese man. We help build the railways in this country. We did so much that they could build on, right? Yeah, our brothers and sisters are taking slaves. Look what they did in America, right? We could take that and educate our kids and say, yeah, we could do it. They're part of us. They're part of us. That's why I don't like this so-called ADOS, FBA, and this division. I think Africans will use the success of Black America for their own. But at the same time, the time's going to come where Black people in America, and the time is coming, right? As Mexicans flood into this country, it's here. What's about the time is coming? Chinese, it's clear that we're trying. African Americans
Hey,
have no more use. America has no more use for us.
Kala. You say you're going to ask Alex a question.
Oh yeah. The question was, wouldn't it be a good idea to have books in Africa about African American inventions in the West to let you see like that? Not only white people were in the West, we helped shape the West too. Your people were here in the West. So when people think of West, they think of white people. That's a lie. That's a lie from the pit of hell.
Yeah.
We
But
helped shape. We produce some of the best minds in the West here too.
I agree, but people have to, or groups have to invest into making that a reality. I can tell you that from going to school in Cameroon, from elementary to like probably like around middle school, I can tell you that a lot of the books are printed by foreign European countries. Like a lot of the books that we're reading from elementary school to like all the way up, they're printed from your foreign European countries. But I also want to say that a lot of different groups that came in contact with Europeans have also gone through this a similar thing that we're going through, where they think they have to be Western first to advance themselves technologically or educationally. The Japanese went through the same thing, and then the Chinese went through the same thing till they got to a point where they were at the same level technologically with the Europeans, and then they devised they plan their whole ethnic identity and how they think of themselves, no longer like below or Europeans, but more level or above or superior.
I agree that.
So we're gonna have to do
Look
the
at the
same thing.
Japanese. Have you studied Japan?
Yeah, I
Have you
know.
studied Japan? You
Yeah,
know
during a
what they
certain
did?
era in Japan, they saw Western ideas as almost superior, and then they
Well,
sought to
but
seek
has the
the
thing.
knowledge from the West, and then they
Right.
deviated recently around like I would say World War II before that started, or shortly after they gained knowledge from the West and adjusted their empire.
This is what happened, right? The Japanese realized. See, the whole thing. People think that Japan started with Carmel Perry in 1853. That's not true. When the Japanese expelled the Portuguese, Dutch, and all these other people, it kept one little island off the coast of Osaka called Deshima. That's where the only contact they had with the outside world. Japanese were forbidden for 250 years to leave the island or things, but they got a lot of information from the West. One of the things they learned about was the transatlantic slave trade, right? And they forbid foreign ships from coming to their land for fear of that. They learned about how Europeans were growing. They were basically preparing themselves in isolation for confrontation with the West. We didn't have that in Africa. We didn't have nobody sitting down, scholars saying like because we were isolated. Africa, the coastline's wide open. Japan had the vantage point of being an island, you know. So they basically said, look, we got control of the islands and everything. We repelled the Mongol invasion, Kublai Khan. And the bottom line is this: he goes, they were studying what was going on in the West. He said the West is making scientific advances, and everything. We're gonna have to one day learn from them, right? Even though we're ruled by the samurai, we're going to one day have to become a unified nation state. They knew that. For 250 years, as old as we are in America, right, they were planning this. So when the modern era came in 1853, they were ready. They were ready for the West, except for except for some of the samurai who tried to resist. They became a republic and said, we have to basically do it. Japanese spirit, foreign technology, right? In other words, basically take it what you uniquely own. If you see a Japanese plane, and we built it, it's Japanese. Westerners got so arrogant. They would come to Japan and see these new buildings and tall buildings, like, that belongs to us. How does it belong to us? We built this in Japan. But that's how Western is uniquely ours. Africans have never made their modernization uniquely theirs. That's why they still feel like outsiders in places like South Africa. They still feel like strangers in Nairobi, in their own country. They feel like second class in their own country. It's for foreigners.
Let me object something. When you still,
what's the exception? What's exceptions? Some exceptions.
Okay. When you say Africans, is the school of thought is in a particular locale. Like I said, big city Africans. You got to be specific, because the village African and the African in the town is doing what his ancestors always did. They stick with the same system over and over and over again. The African politicians' biggest problem is Africans in the big cities. Their demands and their expectations are so high that they can't keep up. When they draw references to places like other places outside the world. Those are the people that draw the comparisons to outside of Africa. Whilst you have the people in the village and the towns, they're in a bubble. Their surroundings is their world. You see what I'm saying? So that's the problem right there.
I disagree. You're making the same mistake the other guy was making. You think the differences between mentalities between the people in the big cities and the villages are so different from
No,
each other
listen to what I
that they're
said. I
almost in a
said the
different
demand.
world.
No, listen, what I said, demand. Okay, for example, big cities everywhere around the world have 24-hour electricity. Big cities around the world have access to potable, access to water. Big cities all around the world provide recreational facilities, roads, infrastructure for their people. Big cities around the world, everywhere you go around the world, they want advancements because these people are in the millions and millions. You see what I'm saying? So they're demanding all those from those governments. Unfortunately, and when they're doing comparisons, they're comparing themselves from look at places like England or America or Hong Kong or Japan or wherever. When did they get independence?
So you're saying if somebody from the village goes to a big city, their mentality just completely changes?
No. The guy from the village, his surroundings is with his surroundings. That's his world. Now, if he wants to advance himself, he doesn't like the village anymore, he can move to the city. But when he moves to the city, okay, initially, because he never is used to electricity or good roads or all those things that cities normally have, he won't be demanding. But down the road, he'll join forces with the people in the area that demand better roads, better schools, more colleges, 24-hour electricity, water supply, basics, advancement jobs. Because
But
jobs,
I don't understand where the big mental difference is. You're saying that
no, it's not.
Africans
I
in the
didn't say
city,
anything about mental.
but you say Africans in the city are more susceptible to European ideologies than the ones in the villages.
Yeah,
which is not true, because there's a lot of Africans in the villages that follow European ideals. Where are the Christian churches?
What Africans
the
in the
most
villages?
biggest? Where are the churches the biggest? Where are the churches in Africa the biggest? Where are they the biggest? In the villages.
What
where people
village
are
do
worshiping foreign ideologies. I'm just telling
what
you the
foreign
truth.
ideology do they follow in the village?
Yeah, they got
Catholic
Facebook out
Christian
there.
churches, all sorts of
Mark.
missionaries that come to the village and spread Western
Listen,
ideologies.
that's part of African culture. Listen, this is what is mistaken. In our village all the time, missionaries come through, foreigners come through, different people from different places come through. It is customary on African culture. Customary on African culture. Wait a minute.
Yeah, but Amar, hold on, Amar. So, are you saying it's customary for Africans to get indoctrinated? I mean, because that's what they're doing.
No. Listen. Let me finish my point. When they say you welcome strangers, that's basically in the village. Okay. Now you don't change. Nothing changes. You don't change your way of life. The Europeans have been going to the villages hundreds of times, and the people over there never change their way of life. They still farm on the land. They still set traps. They still sing and dance. They still have their cultural and ceremonial and customary ceremonies. They still crown their chiefs the same way. They still have when the kids when you have newborns bringing into the world, they still have those ceremonies. When burial rituals, the African herbalists, you know what I'm saying, is still around. Nothing changes, basically. You see what I'm saying? Right now. I'm telling you, we don't have so many strangers in our village, and we never change 1 inch. Nothing changes.
Disagree.
Nothing changes. I'm telling you, I'm giving you a living example from my village. And my perspective, we never changed anything.
Let someone else come in now. Dynasty, let someone else come in now, man.
Hey, yeah, Al, go ahead, Al.
Yeah, man, what you they go on? What you happy about that? Now you full about any part talk, so what you they go on?
Fulaman, how did they go? Like Team Libgoda now.
Yes, sir. How did they? How school you go?
Albert Academy.
Okay, I be go St. Edwards. You don't see let me papa and get answer school in a salon there. It's a bit Alaji Sajali. I mean Alaji Sajali is for right picking out.
Me that America Madam do go and picking. Dr. America Madam do go.
Okay,
you guys speaking
Creole. Hey, Kazorian Empire. Go ahead, Kazorian Empire. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot of things said by these dusty African Pan-African babblists, right? Look, you can't compare, Carla, you can't compare Japanese IQ to an African IQ. Japanese has 103 IQ on average. A dusty African has an IQ of 70. Barely functional as a human being.
Come on. Man, get out of here.
This is the Patriot.
Who the hell was that?
Yeah,
It's Dr. K. He likes to troll. He's just being
that was a good one. We got us good, man.
All right,
that's a mulatto boy. That's a mulatto.
I disagree. Go ahead. I disagree. I disagree.
Oh, no, I think that's ridiculous what that last guy just said. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we all know he's
Yeah,
a
go
troll.
ahead.
Don't worry about him.
Okay, he's a troll. Yeah, I generally agree with what's been said so far. I do see what the Mara is saying, in that Africans do have that welcoming type of personality. See, what I think in general is when it comes to some points were made about Japan and China. The thing is, Japan and China, yes, they actually did. Like if you learn about the history of China and you learn about the Red Revolution, that's actually one of the worst examples of trying as much as possible to be westernized. Mao Zedong actually killed about 70,000 million Chinese people just to actually make that a reality, and that's not
10
something that I
million,
want.
10 million, 10 million people died. It's a great leap forward.
All right, sorry about that. I totally inflated that. But 10 million people died. So those are horrible examples, actually. The thing about Africa is, and someone made a point earlier that why doesn't Africa make progress and then make it African? The problem is this: Africans have lost their identity, and someone made this point earlier on. Because of these European nations, these new lines that were drawn, it's hard for a lot of Africans to actually retain their identity. So once they do make progress, there's no way to bring it back to something that they had before, because a lot of those old cultures are now, they're kind of muddied, if that makes sense. The only thing that they can bring it back to is this Frankenstein country that they're still trying to like grapple and find out what this country itself means. Like, what is Nigeria? Is it a Muslim country like the North? Or is it an Afrobeats country like the South, if that makes sense? So we still don't really know what we are. And until we know what we are, we can't really make technological advancement and then bring it back to something, if that makes sense.
One thing I did agree about Mara, you see Frobe College, the university in Sierra Leone, is the first university in West Africa, and fairly English university, in fact. A lot of people in West Africa used to come to Sierra Leone and study and travel around the world. So that's one thing I agree about. However, I was going to say, Amara, but you know, when he mentioned Futa Jalon earlier about the Fulani take over and move the Timni, there's still Timni people living Telemile. If you go to Futa right now, you're going to see a lot of Timni people live there. Can you hear me? Yeah.
You're real low. Say that again.
No, when Amara said the Fula people moved the Timini out of Guinea in Futa Jalon, that's not true, because there's still Timini people live in Futa Jalon. Last year when I went there, there's still a lot of Timini people live there. From there all the way to northern Sierra Leone, like Port Loko, Cambia, all this part, it's all connected directly. However, as we're saying, the borders between the Sierra Leone and Guinea was put there by the French to the cut off lot of people. Like obviously, all this colonial system when they draw the line. So one tribe, it's been cut off. So you got one tribe in this side of the country, and you got the same tribe on the other side of the border. But obviously in Guinea, it's there are a lot of checkpoints. If you're gonna travel from Guinea to Sierra Leone, they don't care what tribe you are. Yeah. You're gonna be, especially if you don't speak French, or you're gonna struggle anyway, regardless what tribe you belong to. So that's how the game works. In fact, during the war in Sierra Leone, a lot of the people that came to Guinea, regardless whether you're Fula or Timini, we all used to get targeted by the authorities in Guinea. If you don't have an ID card, they don't care what tribe you belong to. You're going in. Hello.
Yeah,
I don't think Amara is on the mic right now.
Yeah.
He's away.
1 second. The I am. Go ahead. The I am. Unmute yourself. The I am.
Yeah, peace. What's going on? Peace. What's going on, man?
Peace. Go ahead.
This is my first time on here, so I'm trying to see like what's going on in reference to like, don't Africans and African Americans have to give an account for what they have done in the past? In reference to why there's so much confusion and division amongst Negroes, aka African Americans, and people from Africa.
Definitely, man. I agree with it.
Okay, I'm back. Somebody said something about sorry for rudely interrupting. Somebody said something about Timinis in Futa Jalon.
Yeah,
Yes, Timinis.
Yes, Telemile. If you go Telemile, like last couple of years ago when I was there, there's still too many people there, you know.
Yes, that's true. There are Timinis in Futa Jalon. In fact, Futa Jalon is what is considered our ancestral home, because we kept on being moved from Mali all the way to Guinea, but the majority in Sierra Leone, with the majority, you know, and the majority of us moved to Sierra Leone. The rest of it's only Timinis that did that. It's Quran. All the other people that were there, the Qurancars, the Sosos, the Yalonkars, all moved with us to Sierra Leone. And when we moved to Sierra Leone, we had to find space. We had to fight the Bulums, the Limbas, and all these other people for space. And the only reason why we were not targeted in Sierra Leone by the invading armies is because northern Sierra Leone is a forest, you know, so they struggled in the forest. That's the only saving grace. That's why we're still alive today.
All the way to the border to Guinea, like Farana and them places. I know. Yeah, you're right.
We have in Kindia. In Kindia, we have a large Timini
as well.
Kindia, Guinea. We have but a small minority. The only place where you find a majority of Timinis are in Sierra Leone.
Yeah,
but we're still in those small places. Yeah, that's true.
That's right. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. I'm glad that we got that correct. I'm glad that
majority of us are in Sierra Leone. That's our major place. So
yeah, and also even though Fula we're more related to the Mende or the Mandinka, but we're more closer to you guys, right?
No, I got Fula in my family. I thought
you're not gonna get a lot of Timini. The Timini Sanda are full of people anyway. Just like
but you know, in Sierra Leone, the Timini culture is patrilineal. So whoever we marry into, they become Timini. That's how we wiped out the Bulums. That's how we wiped out the Bulums.
The Sanda Timni, the Fula and Timni, the Kai Mende, the Fula and Mende. So that's how
I'm a Sanda Timni. I'm a Sanda Timni. Sanda Loco.
Yes. Okay, I got you now. So you're half.
No, I'm 100%. My mom and dad. My dad is from Bombali, and my mom is from Potloko.
Okay, Bombali. Now Bombali district, come on, yes.
Bombali district, and my mom is from Potloko. Lonsar, Potloko.
Yes. Okay. Yeah,
but his cousin. His cousin, my auntie, he's married to a Fula man. That's how we got a Fula. But my cousins, they speak more Timini than Fula. You know, in those places.
Yeah.
They speak more Timini. They call them the Wuris. You know the Wuris?
Yes.
The Wuris, the Jalos.
And the Timbo. Yes. And
the Timbos, yeah. But the females in our family got married to Fulani men. But those people are all they speak Timini now clearly. You see what I'm saying? Because you know, Fulas are minority, like in Sanda and in Cambia district. You know, Kabbalah, those places they are majority.
Yes, Kabbalah.
But in Bombali district.
Yes, Kabbalah is where the Fula people are more concentrated. Kabbalah, yeah.
Exactly. But those don't mix. They don't mix with any other tribe. But the ones in Bombali and Potlaka, they mix with Timni. Yep.
Yes, but that's because of the link to back to Futa Jalon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Futa Jalon is a story home, you know. Yes, and when I go to Guinea, I go to Futa Jalon and I go to Kindia.
The Timni and the Jalunka, the Jakan Keden, una the Jakan Keden fetch na Futa Jalon.
Yep. Also the Fulani fathers, the Limbas fathers.
But you know Jakan Keden, they mix with Fula now.
Yep, they are. Yeah. Anyway, Bombali district is really mixed. But our clan, the Dumbuya clan, is 100% Timni. You see what I'm saying? Because it's a local.
Dumbuya na Timni. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm glad I've got that right. Yeah, definitely, man. That's a little bit of history there.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, yeah, that's cool, man. I'm glad that we rectified that, because I was hearing certain things. I'm thinking, God, what is he talking about now? Because I got that. I'm glad you correct that. The Fulanis were in charge of spreading Islam in West Africa.
They had all these caliphates. And us, the Timinis, were the most stubborn. Yeah, we are the most stubborn tribe. We are the most stubborn tribe. It was hard for us to convert to Islam. We fought the British.
We was forced to convert to Islam ourselves because after Ghana Empire fell, we was forced to convert to Islam. But we have the Bororo Fula that refused to join Islam up to now. These are the ones that live in northern Nigeria, in Niger, and Cameroon. They refused.
We have Bororo people in my area.
Yes, they refuse. They get a wall. So they're the one that, if you're going to find any trouble, like if the full of people in Nigeria, they got problem, they get the Bororo to come over and sort it out. In fact, last
well,
week,
they got team in the streak. They got team in the streak. Because if you have a team in the streak, you're very rebellious. By Boere, fought the British. By Boere was the most stubborn team in the king. The British say they're supposed to have taxes in Sierra Leone. They say, go. Who told you you're supposed to have taxes? Then the king, the governor, and the Queen of England said, I put $200 for everybody that find Baibure. And Baibure said, I give everybody $500 for everybody that gets me the Queen of England. I mean, we are very aggressive tribe.
It's in northern Nigeria right now. Yeah, there are a lot of Timmy people up there. They went there with the fullers.
Yeah, we got a Bantu mix, and they were kicking our ass from the Niger Congo Delta all the way. Everywhere we settled, we had a fight.
Yes.
The only area where we really settled as a majority is spots of Sputajalam, Guinea, some parts of Mali, but the majority is in Sierra Leone, northern Sierra Leone.
My great grandfather be so man.
Okay.
Great grandfather for my dad's side was a so.
Okay.
For Marcy now.
Yeah, I know some so-sos. Yeah, it's a Queen Mama.
I don't speak.
Oh, you don't speak it. Okay.
Yeah, say Flamana. Say me go Jarama Tadala.
In Jarama Nani.
That's what I was saying about the when people talk about Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana and stuff like that. If you think about like Stengbe Pierre and the guy that you mentioned, Boubacar Biro and Samurai Toure, these are people that started fighting against invaders long time ago before anyone started, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so these people they started the fight before anybody started fighting, to defend our people. But don't forget, Islam was to get all the tribes together, because the tribalism between the Mandinka and the Soso and the Timini and the Fula, there was too much tribal war. So because of Islam, that enabled us to be together and one umbrella. That's how we managed to fight
disagree
invaders.
with that, honestly.
No, that's why I like our own brand of Islam. Our brand of Islam is
tribalism. Come on.
No, tribalism, like I told you, man, in the big cities, you can't be tribalistic. You're not helping yourself.
It's difficult.
It's difficult to be. It's difficult.
Even at the big cities.
No, it's there, but you're not helping yourself. Don't tell me if a Mende man is the best doctor. And when you go to the hospital and your kid is sick, you say, I want a Timini man to take care of your kid when he doesn't know how to do his job. Or you want a promotion at your job and some other tribe is there. You gotta kowtow. You gotta keep suck up soon. That's the only way you advance yourself in the city.
That's true. No, I agree with that. It's difficult to be especially in Sierra Leone now. In Sierra Leone, it's not possible to be tribalist anyway.
That's not
tribalism
true.
in Sierra Leone is not easy. It's not easy, man. It's difficult.
Hey, one second. Hold on 1 second. One mic. You have a real bad echo, man. Try to call in on another device, brother. All right, go ahead.
I know we want to see Sierra Leone is tribalism, not the big tongue, then they happen, but we know for sure that that's not true right now.
Who is this?
Well, my thing is, what is really preventing?
Is it not Sierra Leone?
Yeah, I'm not Sierra Leone.
Okay.
Anything.
Go ahead.
Hey, Leroy,
Oh,
I can't hear you. I didn't hear you. You sound
oh,
like
sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah, repeat
yeah,
the
you talk
question.
all low, like this is damn midnight love. Pause. You know, you on BT Donnie Simpson. Music video. Like we got to hear you, bro. Go
Oh,
ahead.
my bad. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, my thing is this: what is preventing Africans from establishing anything, whether it be businesses on big levels, uh, hospitals? What is preventing us from doing so?
Africa's already doing that.
Yes, that's one thing. And the second thing is Africa has a lot of internal turmoil. It's very, very important for people to not overlook this. Again, those lines that were drawn in Africa, they have actually led to a lot of turmoil. You can't really just put a bunch of people that had pre-existing histories and beef with one another and everything is going to be fine all of a sudden. People are still grasping, trying to figure out how they fit into this entire thing. And one way or another, it actually leads to a lot of strife, and it actually it delays a lot of progress in one sense. So Africa has to do some homework in terms of finding who it is, how to best define yourselves. Again, if it's not a matter
Well, if that's all already established, why are you guys always debating and arguing?
how is that
My
already
brother,
established?
my
Leroy.
brother,
me?
I get your point about the lines that people draw, but I don't think these lines were not existing in some form before the Westerners did theirs. We always had lines when it comes to Africa. There are different empires, there are different tribes, there are different groups of people. This has always been there,
I
and
don't think
we have
that's what
had
he's trying to say.
interfight.
Right.
No,
So
what I'm saying, we have always had those fights.
correct.
What we should be hoping for now is for us to unite as
Sure.
one.
Idris, you're
What
in.
he's trying to say is we had those lines. We're the ones who made those lines, and we made those
Correct.
lines based on similar cultures,
Exactly.
similar
Yes.
identities,
No,
similar
Agreed.
ethnic groups.
Based on
We
agreed.
can't
Go ahead.
we
okay.
can't just join something that was not going to work.
Exactly.
As much as we want to be all one Africa, all one continent together as a country, or as much as we want to join with other people with ideologies that will not mix correctly with ours, we can't just do it. We
Right.
have to do it on a technical basis, on a basis that's going to make sense for everybody involved, which is why I
Exactly.
like the East African
Well,
Confederation.
what
Like
is
I said,
preventing us from
I
being a
think we should make
superpower?
Okay.
federations based on
Idris, where are you?
cultural similarities and ethnic or ethical or ideological similarities, so it can be smooth and we can only concentrate on the stuff that makes sense, like infrastructure and stuff that betters our lives, and less on the stuff that brings differences.
I agree. And
So
so
Because
on
I
this
live
so
in
thing,
what I don't
America, and it seems like
understand, we are
Africans don't
talking
own
about East
shit here.
Africa.
go ahead, Leroy.
East Africa have those same lines, but
No,
they figured out a way for it to work for themselves.
that's because they're similar. If you notice, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, the people there are very similar. That's the thing. Those lines are based. They are very. They model what they had before. All those groups are already rocking with each other to a significant degree. So that's why it's easy for them to actually just move into the East African.
It's not easy, it's easier.
It's easier, exactly. So, like
Okay.
Alex said, we are making progress, but we also have some of this internal turmoil that's actually slowing it down. So both of these things happen at the same time. So Leroy, it's not like we're not doing these things. It's just there are a lot of things that we have to work through as well. So we are getting there. But this is just the reality of what's going on. Idris, if you're from Sierra Leone, again, some of those groups there, they're very similar on the far west. So they already had a lot of similar history with each other. But you have some countries like you see what's going on in Nigeria currently. Some of those groups have nothing to do with each other, and that's one of like the big areas where it's like this coming election is a whole nother drama in Nigeria, like it always is. Rotating the president from one part of the country to another part of the country, so no part of the country gets left out. When you do that, you can't select the president based on competence, because you're always trying to make sure that the next ethnic group is satisfied in the next election, and it's things like this.
It happens in Sierra Leone too. In Sierra Leone, the APC, All People's Congress Party, it's a Timini dominated party, but the founder was a Limba. The two founders were Limbas, which is a minority tribe, and Timini, which is the majority tribe. And all the northern people from the northern region of Sierra Leone and the western region of Sierra Leone. Then you have the Sierra Leone People's Party, which the president of Sierra Leone comes from that area, or from that party. Now, the west southern part of Sierra Leone and eastern part of Sierra Leone is Mende dominated, but you have other small tribes like Shabro, Vai, Cream, Crew, and other people. All those people combine to form the Sierra Leone People's Party. You see, so it is grouped like the president's president. The vice president is from the north, is a Fulani. You see what I'm saying? And the president is from the south. Like the last president before that, the vice president was from the south, was Mende, and the president was Timni by Anes Koromar. And this president Madabio is Mende Shabro, and his vice president is a Fulani, Jule Jallo, I think his last name is Jallo. Jule Jallo is the vice president. So when they do regional, when they're picking president and vice president, well, president got to come from one region, but his vice president got to satisfy the other end of the country. So I could see when you're saying the Nigerian example where there are Igbos, Yorubas, and Hausas, and is regionalized. Those minority tribes that are around the Igbos and minority tribes around the Yoruba and around the Fulani. You know, when you pick presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate, you have to satisfy regions. It's the same in Sierra Leone.
Right. So, of course, when you're trying to satisfy regions, you're not really thinking about progress. You're thinking about peace, right? So
It's the interpretation. You see what I'm saying? People, okay, when it comes to politics, it's highly tribalized. Why? Because people will say, okay, for example, the criteria. The vice president from Sierra Leone, okay, he got a PhD, okay, he's qualified in many areas. So educationally, he's qualified. He has a long tenure working for public service and all that. That is taken into consideration. But then the regional aspect is taken into consideration too. You see, because I don't look down on some people that didn't go to the Europeanized educational system. But the illiterates, the people that can't read and write, they look at it from their viewpoint that, hey, you didn't pick somebody from my area. You know, there's no representation from, there are all these qualified people, highly educated people from the southern region, the eastern region, and the southern region, for example, and you didn't pick. You see what I'm trying to say? Like the vice president before the government before was a Mende. It comes from Boers, which is the biggest district in the south of Sierra Leone. And the president was Timni, and he was Mende. You see what I'm saying? So the president comes from our district, Bambali district. In fact, the present presidential candidate comes from my village. You know, he comes from the other clan, Samura Kamara. So that's how they do. All these people go to school, and they got this long service, serving governments, and they got a long fat resume and shows their qualification, that they're competent. But then to satisfy people, the illiterates, for example, you got to pick by regions. That's the way it goes. That's why even the British, the way they laid out the system in Sierra Leone, certain tribes like the Timnis and Mendes. The Timnis and Mendes were the most rebellious tribes. They're the majority in Sierra Leone, but they always fight the British. So they reserve politics for them. The Limbas are the most loyal, most obedient tribe. They dominate the police. They were in the armies, the Yalokars and the Kurankars wouldn't leave no resistance to the British. So the British recruited them to stay in the army and the police. Now the Creoles, the descendants, they came in because Freetown was first a colony before the rest of Sierra Leone was a colony. They created that colony right there, and they controlled the Creole because they already were controlling them in the United States. So when they had their own free land in a place called Freetown, which is the capital city of Sierra Leone today, they formed their own government, they formed their own system. You see what I'm saying? So certain tribes, when you look at the British colonial history, when you go to certain institutions like army, police, civil service, justice system, the court system, politics are dominated by certain banking. They're dominated by certain tribes because the British positioned them in those tribes, in those industries and fields, so they could recruit loyal people. So really, they had the makings of these countries to be peaceful. You see what I'm saying? And like Limbas, they're a minority, they're a small minority, but they're the co-founder. Shaka Stevens was the co-founder of political party APC. And the Timini guy, Esako Roma, which is the really guy that brought in all the Timinis on board. But when you look at the Timinis, we're everywhere. We're good in business, we're in government, and we're everywhere. But politics, we're huge in politics because the British position us and the Mendes because we are the most rebellious. We face the most, gave them the most resistance in Sierra Leone. Because our king, Baibure, was the one that said, no, British, you can't come over there and tax us. You understand what I'm saying? The British government said, I put $200 on your head, Baibure, you know, the king of Kasebulon. And Baibure said, I put $500 for anybody that catch the British governor. You know, toe for toe.
So that's good for Timney and the other group you said that the British put in power. But the thing is, you're going to run into the other groups who were not put in power, and now they have to deal with the Timney being put in power by the British.
No, okay, well, let me give you the population of Sierra Leone. Mendes and Timnis are 68% of Sierra Leone's population. Okay? The other 22% is spread within 15 other tribes. So they're already minorities to begin with by population, if you go by majority votes. Now, the Timnis with the APC, they got all these small minority tribes in the north and the descendants in the west region and in the west, which include Freetown. Those people usually vote for APC, which is a Chimney-dominated tribe because of the population, but all the other minorities, they share power among each other. Now, the Sierra Leone People's Party, which is a Mende-dominated party, you know, where the Mendes dominate the south, in the south and the east, they got all these small minority tribes that share power. Even the president of Sierra Leone, his mom is Shabru. I think his dad is the one that is Mende. So you have those crossbreeds like that. You know, they let even they let a Madingo guy be presidents, Tijan Kaba. So they'll let small minorities hold big positions. But the majority tribe is what really push the votes. Because Timnis make up 35%, Mendes make up 33% of the population. So with those two majority tribes, the British position them politically. Whilst the other minority tribes, they did it by loyalty. Like example, the Fulanis and the Timnis were great in business. You know, we also, the educated ones go into politics and administration, work in government apparatus and stuff like that. Okay. So that's how it is distributed. That's how the British set it up.
Sure. So in Nigeria, there's no tribe that's loyal. Everyone is pretty strong-headed. It's like putting a bunch of strong-willed personalities in one place, and it just doesn't work out so nicely like Sierra Leone, I guess.
But they don't have minority tribes in northern Nigeria that all lean on the Hausa, Fulani, or minority tribes in the east that lean with the Igbo, or minority tribes in the south that lean on the Yoruba. They're going to have minority tribes that benefit politically, you know?
Right.
By just close proximity because they're geographically located in the same area.
Sure. So going back to what Alex pointed out earlier, right? So that's the thing. You see those minority groups that were already similar to, say, the Yoruba, for instance, it would have been perfect to create an alliance with those groups because they were already planning on doing so. They were already willing to work with the bigger group that's next to them. The problem is you got all these big groups that were, each of them were all, like I said, strong-willed. These were essentially empires. You're not putting a bunch of minorities together. You're putting a bunch of old empires together. Now everyone is trying to be the new empire. And you know how that works.
No, what I'm saying, okay, government positions. okay? Outside of the local government position, let me say the federal government positions, when they're pulling in cabinet ministers or permanent secretaries, they're going to pull in from people from regions. Even though like the Igbo might dominate the east, the Yorubas dominate the south, the Hausa Fulani dominate the north. Those small minorities, you can't tell me they are not represented in the federal government?
They, for the most part, they're not represented in the federal government. No, as far as the president,
they're not. So what you say in the Senate and in the House, they don't
Honestly,
have representatives from minority tribes
I don't know.
from those regions as senators and members of parliament. They don't.
They do. They definitely do. They do. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's government representation.
But certainly, none of them are touching the presidency. That's for sure. Not in that country.
No, the presidency is going to come from. Well, we in Sierra Leone, because there's too much emphasis on Mendes and Timnis. So this is what Mendes and Timnis do. They hide behind minority tribes because they don't want to be looked upon as bullying. So, for example, even Marabio is not 100% Mende. He's got Shabro. His mom is Shabro. So they use that as an example, saying, "Oh, we're letting other minority tribes run the show." But really, the Mendes are the ones that got the agenda. They are the ones that pull the strings in the background. Same with the Timni. When they let a Limba man be president or Fulani, whatever, whoever, they hide behind that, and they're the ones pulling the strings. They're telling the guy what to do. You see what I'm saying? But just to appease anti-tribalism, they put that guy as the face of the party, as presidential candidate, but really he doesn't have the power. It's the big tribes that have the power behind the throne, because you don't have the votes of the Mendes or Timnis in Sierra Leone, you're not going to get elected. That's just the truth. So they'll do that to make all the small tribes be president or vice president. They don't really care. They're the one that run the show. They're the one you look into. All the government jobs, they're the ones that dominate it. You see, so they want to pull the strings behind the throne. That's how the setup is.
Go ahead. We'll close out in about 10 minutes. But go ahead.
Yeah, someone said wasn't Gowon and Good Luck from minority. Yes, Gowon was from a minority. Let me touch on Good Luck first. Good Luck was actually the vice president. He became the president accidentally because the president died. So he was not elected. That's how Good Luck became president. So no, he wasn't elected as president. And Gowon came into presidency after during the time of the Biafra War. So he was actually selected by the Northerners as a representative for the North to actually take the country back from Igbos, because Igbos had taken the country militaristically. So again, that also was not an election. Neither of those people were elected. For all elections, is the major ethnic group or Fulani. That's what happens in Nigeria.
Okay, well, Alex, anything you want to add, Alex, before we close out?
I agree with what the disagree guy was saying. Basically, we have to focus on our similarities culturally and create sort of federations that can take advantage of our similarities and focus on the stuff that actually matters. Because honestly, the smaller African countries are not going to be able to compete with bigger powers like from Europe or from Asia. They're not going to be able to compete with them. So the best way to compete with worldwide with these powers is to create confederations or federations where they can get along and focus on the stuff that actually matters and not ideological bullshit that they're going to be fighting over.
Yes, sir. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror, search for Huru. Peace.
Peace.